Hello, hello, hello. How's everyone going tonight? How's everything going? How are things? 10-year anniversary video. I can't believe I've been doing this for 10 years. I need a life. No, I'm just kidding. Well, I do kind of. But anyway, um, so yeah, so 5 out of 10 of those years I was in America. I See, that kind of blows my mind. It feels like I was in New Zealand for most of the time, but that was only at the start. Hey, Brandon, how's it going? Um, and Jordan, yes, thank you. Um, so yeah, as I said in the announcement video, if you didn't see that at any time during the entire stream, feel free to chime in with any questions or any topics you'd like us to discuss. I will be joined by Alyssa later, and then after that, Darren's going to come in. So they're kind of going to trickle in and sort of not stay the whole time. Oh, Stephen Kennedy, you're up late. Thanks for the 10 years. Uh, so yeah. Well, I remember you telling me it was the middle of the night when in your time zone when I did these live streams. What else have we got? So I think it was J came in '99, and I don't see. Oh, 1:30 a.m. That's not too late. That's not too bad, unless you got to get up at like 6 a.m. for work, which but let's see, Brandon, you don't look a day over 7. Well, thank you so much. I was thinking about the whole May the 4th thing, May the 4th be with you, and how Star Trek is trying to create a Star Trek holiday where they have it was I think they chose the day that the original series first aired. What was it, Man Trap? The day then they're calling that Star Trek Day, and they have these like live streams with Will Wheaton and other actors and people involved with Star Trek, and they're like, "Happy Star Trek Day!" And outside of that, nobody like they're trying really hard to get it caught on, but no one's catching it on. No one's no one's doing that. And Cyril Laughlin with his podcast, The Seventh Rule, he tried to do Cisco Day. It was like it's Cisco Day, and they had a giant picture of Captain Cisco and celebrating him. That I'm more on board with that. But the other thing is 7 of 9 Day. I've seen a lot of posts about that, but the problem is that the US does their dates differently than pretty much the rest of the world, like the numbers. So because the US does month, then day, then year, whereas most of the other world does the more logical thing, going in the proper order, going day, month, year. So in the US, they say July 9th because they start with the month 7/9 is 7 of 9 Day, but the rest of the world is like stupid Americans. It's not 7 of 9 Day. They wait until September 7th because they go, day 7/9. But anyway, so 7 of 9 Day doesn't really work out either. So I don't think any of these Star Trek days are going to pan out. Let's see. Oh, First Contact Day. Yeah, that's another one. That's a different one. I think that would actually catch on more. I think more people celebrate First Contact Day than their actual Star Trek Day. I think the official CBS people need to get on board with that and make First Contact Day their official holiday. Yeah, but so Brandon says isn't First Contact Day enough? Yes, I agree it is, but they're not officially celebrating it. They're celebrating the stupid Star Trek Day in September, the day that Man Trap aired, which is ridiculous. The logical Brandon saying I live in a logical part of the world. I used to, so I'm used to the date being either way. I kind of gotten used to it, and I kind of gotten used to. It's funny. I'd gotten used to Celsius, but I was never Like, so if I knew what 18 degrees feel like, I knew, oh yeah, it's going to be kind of warm, but not too hot. But I never got the conversion of what Celsius was in Fahrenheit. Like, I just understood what it was weather wise. When I found the conversion, it's funny because I realized that the weather was a lot colder in New Zealand than I thought it was, because I thought, oh, 17 degrees or what, I can't remember it now, but something like that. I was like, oh yeah, that's fairly warm. But I looked it up in Fahrenheit, it was like only 60. I'm like, really? That's it? It's only 60 degrees? That's not that warm. But but anyway, um, yes, Celsius 5/9 Fahrenheit 32. I'm not sure where you are. I don't -5. Maybe you're saying. Anyway, oh, Jordan Johnson's also in the logical part of the world. I didn't realize that. I wonder, is it only the U.S. that does the month and day, or is there other countries that do that? I don't know. But anywho, the whole driving though, driving on the right side rather than the left side, I'm actually think America's correct in that case. I'm sorry. And it's not just America, all of Europe does it as well. You know, North America does it as well. I don't I'm pretty sure South America does most of it. I think there's some British colonies that do the left side, but um and it's funny. I was talking to someone from England. They're talking about taking the ferry from England to France, and how as soon as they arrive in France, they have to switch they have a thing that switches them to the other side of the road, and then their steering wheel will be on the wrong side. But that's kind of funny. But anyway, because the reason why America is correct is because America invented the car. And apparently, I looked this up, or someone told me as a fun factoid, is that the reason why the British colonies go on the left side is because that's how they used to do the jousting or something like that. And he's driving out like that. U.S. colonies maybe do the U.S. states. Well, yeah, sure, like U.S. territories, but anything outside the U.S., I'm wondering. And its affiliates. So, in my announcement video, I said that the first video I ever put out for Enchantment of Eternity was a review for the Game of Thrones episode Mockingbird. That was actually wrong. I looked it up, and it wasn't Mockingbird, which is episode 7 of season 4 of Game of Thrones. It was actually First of His Name, which is episode 5 of season 4 of Game of Thrones. The reason why I got confused is because the thumbnail I used for First of His Name was Peter Baelish and Lysa Arryn, because they did show up in that episode. But when I saw them, I was just like, oh, I associate them more with Mockingbird because that's the episode spoilers. I mean, y'all should have seen Game of Thrones by now. Anyway, that's the episode where Peter Baelish throws Lysa Arryn out the moon door. So that's what made me think of that, but it's not actually Mockingbird. It was First of His Name. And I'm pretty sure that is the first video I did with the moniker Enchantment of Eternity. As I said, I released a couple other videos. Most of them I deleted. Before I was doing, in fact, I called it Senator Vreenax, and my channel up until like last year, like the official like @ thing was Senator Vreenax, but then YouTube changed it, so instead of saying Enchantment of Eternity, it would say the @ thing, which is Senator Vreenax. So I had to go in and officially change that to Enchantment of Eternity, so people wouldn't call me Senator Vreenax. I was just unoriginal. I couldn't think of a name. I was like trying so hard to think of a name for my channel, and I just couldn't do it. And I was like, because I kept thinking of like established characters like Yoda and And I was like, but no, I don't want to be boring like that and just take a name from an established franchise. And I didn't want to call it like Mark's channel because that's a boring name. I'm sorry. It's not boring. I like my name just fine, but I don't want to use it as the name of the channel. So I thought of, and I told this story many times before. Those Brandon, I'm sure, and some others heard this before, but I used to write short stories in the 2010s, or no, the 2000s actually. And one of my stories was called Life of Enchantment. In fact, I did a short film very extremely loosely based off that story, which you can see on my channel. You can check out my short film. But it was so loosely based on it. It was like barely even the same story. Um, because I wouldn't be able to do the actual Life of Enchantment story without a like $1 billion budget because it was like a sci-fi taking place on the colony or different world. So I had to readjust it to make it take place in modern times and get rid of all the techno sci-fi digital budget digital effects types things and remove them for the story and make it filmable and with no budget. But anyway, so one of my stories is called Life of Enchantment. The other one was called Welcome to Eternity. So when I was trying to come up with a name, I tried for like weeks and weeks to come up with a name, but finally I was like, why don't I just take a word from each of my short stories because that's something that's original to me rather than, even though no one's read them or some of them were published in like these very very minor magazines that nobody reads, but still nobody reads them, but still it's something unique to me rather than stealing or calling myself Cinder of Renak or Worf or anything like that or Yoda. So that's how I came up with this name, and then I justified the name as being a pretentious way of saying sci-fi and fantasy because enchantment sounds very fantasy-like and eternity sounds very sci-fi-like. So, and I cover sci-fi and fantasy. So there you go. That's how I came up with that pretentious name. But anyway, um, yeah, I remember, man. Senator Vreenak 33. Yep, that's right. Mark, what do you like most about your channel? Oh God, I don't know. I just like talking about shit. I guess um I like I suppose I like the interaction the best. I like the whenever I get comments, except for of course the asshole comments. But that comes with the job. I've long acquired a thick skin for that kind of thing. But I do like seeing comments and interactions and also it's just I think it's fun to it like exercises a different part of my brain to just analyze rather than just watch a show, to analyze it and think about it more and then talk about it and talking about like regurgitating and just thinking about it. It's a very different experience and it exercises my education because I was studied media studies, and that's something I don't do in my normal life because I was never able to get a job in the actual field I studied in. I was just working at a pizza place. But so it's good for me to have that outlet to come on my channel and use that part of my brain, that part of my studies, and yeah, and I love doing it because Lord knows I'm not getting hardly any fucking money from it. I mean, all the money I get is from my very generous and very kind patron supporters, which I love them, and I think they're super nice to donate anything to me. But it's unfortunately not enough to live on, and the money I get from YouTube now is shit. And even back in the day, like in the height of my channel, when I was having thousands of views on my Game of Thrones videos, and the money I made was a hell of a lot higher, but it was still not enough to live on. I'm so really jealous. I mean, that's the only reason why I would ever want more views because I think being a super popular channel with like millions of views would like Steve Shives or Jesse Gender, like that would be a lot more trouble. But The only reason why I would really want that is so I could live off of those funds and not have to work a shit job that I don't like. So yes, that's basically why what I like most about this channel is exercising that part of my brain. Okay, so we got a few more comments. Let's see. Uh, let's see. Easy answer. He has 2 cats. Actually, incorrect. I have 3 cats. There we go. Yes. So there's Lily. Oh, they're to the side. Maybe they'll come over here later. There's Lillian, who I had first, but then I got 2 kittens from the same litter, Holden and Naomi, named after the Expanse, and they're not kittens anymore. They're 2 years old now, but but they pick on the older cat. It's a shame they team up on her, but not all the time. Yeah, no, my cat's names aren't Enchantment and Eternity. I didn't think about that. No, they're Holden and Naomi from The Expanse. I don't know if you know The Expanse. Let's see. I know what Mark looks about his channel. Spoiler warning: he hates Star Trek and has been faking it for years. You found me out, Steven. You figured me out. God damn it, you exposed me. Actually, the truth is, doing my channel is what got me back into Star Trek. Like, I always, of course, been a huge Star Trek fan since I was 11. I talk about that a lot. Maybe it was 12, but something like that. 11 or 12. And I was like super obsessed with Star Trek up when I was a teenager. But there was a time, like when I first met my now ex-wife, I got her into Star Trek and we were watching Star Trek together. But there was a time while I was married that I didn't really watch Star Trek at all. In fact, around the time I started my channel, I mean, I was divorced by this time, but I was still never got back into Star Trek. It was like a year or two after I finished film school. So I was more into movies in general. Like, if that's why I did the start of my channel with like top 50 movies, and my idea was to do a lot of movie reviews, but then I was seeing that my movie reviews weren't getting any views and my Game of Thrones and Star Trek stuff was. So then I switched focus and then eventually discarded the movie thing. But I was more into movies at the time I started my channel than I was into Star Trek. Like, I didn't watch Star Trek at all. I didn't go back and watch the episodes, but I wanted to got the idea to do episode reviews, and so then I started watching Star Trek more, and that's what got me back into Star Trek. So I became more obsessed with Star Trek again because of this channel. Let's see. I like the community that comes with the channel like this myself. Yes, me too. I like the feel of community. Let's see. What else? Sorry, I'm trying to catch up here. Oh, you're allergic to cats. Yeah, that sucks. Yeah. I don't think I am. Someone suggested I was, but I think it's more of pollen that gets me. Um, let's see what else. Which fan base was harder to work with, GOT or Star Trek? Oh God, I don't know that. See that? I want to say GOT, um, but it's not like crystal clear. But that's just where I'm leaning because I feel like I got into more arguments with them, and people would say the most ridiculous shit and have these stupid theories. Like, don't even get me started about the whole Lancel was the oh no, Lancel wasn't the gift, it was Gendry, which was the dumbest shit I've ever heard. And so many people were vehemently arguing with me about, like, the show clearly said that Lancel was the gift. If you haven't seen Game of Thrones, you probably don't know what I'm talking about. It's like a season 4. Yeah, it was a season 4 thing, or was it? No, season 5. It was a season 5 thing. But anyway, like Littlefinger says, I have a gift for you, and they didn't like make it super clear to all these idiots who can't read between the lines, and so they came up with stupid theories like Gendry, who hadn't been in the show in forever, had nothing to do with anything, but very clearly, like, if you use your freaking brain, it was goddamn Lancel. And so I made a whole video about that, and so many people downvoted and argued with me. And then there was all the Stannis fanboys. Like, I just thought it was an interesting exercise to, like, so I made this video called "It's All Stannis' Fault," and how what would happen if Stannis actually didn't get involved and fuck up the War of the Five Kings, which I thought was an interesting thought experience. But so many people were so irate. Like, I think that was the most downvotes I ever got in the video. But then, to be fair, I also got a lot of upvotes. Because it was just a very popular video, thousands of views or whatnot. But so many people were so irate. Because I don't know why, but there was a group of Stannis fanboys who, like, defended him over everything. They hated Daenerys in general, and they defended Stannis for everything. So yeah, I think GOT is the answer. I mean, with Star Trek, I didn't get that many. I only have a few Vic Fontaine defenders or in-game defenders, but they're never, like, rude about it. They're never, like, argumentative, being like, the way the Game of Thrones guys were. They're just like, well, I think I disagree with you, Mark. I actually like Vic Fontaine. And that's fine. You can say that. That's not, I don't have a problem with that. Is when they come aboard and it's like, how dare you besmirch Stannis, you fucking asshole. Like, yeah, just, like, calm down. Are cats allergic to you, Mark? No, cats are not allergic to me. All right, so what else? I got caught up in that question. So, Norman is saying, for me, it was the opposite. When I finally became a homeowner in 2009 and was on sabbatical, I started to look at cats to adopt, but noticed my eyes water like crazy and sneeze. Yeah, I never had cats growing up. That was more of an adult thing. And the main reason why I had cats is because it was easier to get in an apartment with a cat than it was a dog. Because I was always a dog person before, but now I'm totally a cat person. I don't even want a dog now. And when I like dogs, there was small dogs. In fact, the only dog I would get, and my siblings, especially my brother, not Alyssa, but my brother, really disagree with me on this, and I'm like, oh my god, that's stupid. If I ever got a dog, it would be the smallest, tiniest dog you could possibly have. Like, that's the kind of dog I would. When I see these dogs, like my other cat Blue, who passed away a couple years ago, I don't know if I've shown him on my channel a couple times. He was a Norwegian forest cat, which is the big breed of cats, similar to the Maine Coon, like the cat that's on Discovery, but slightly not quite as big as that, a bit smaller, but big for a cat. And then when I lived in New Zealand, the person I lived with had a friend who would come over and bring her dog, and the dog was like the smallest, tiniest little thing. It was smaller than my cat. My cat was like twice the size of this dog. And that's the kind of dog I would want. And so I told my brother this. He's like, stick to cats. Don't bother getting those tiny yippy dogs. So I think I will. I mean, I got 3 cats. That's already too much, to be honest. I'm not going to get any more pets. Until, sadly, one of these passed, but I'll probably just get another cat. Let's see. I became a Star Trek fan watcher since mid-TNG season 4 and was continuing until around the end of season 2 of Enterprise. Did not see season 3 and 4 until later. And now I have watched a lot of the series over and over again, especially TNG, DS9, and Voyager. I've now watched episodes 3 to 4 times. Yeah, I've seen all the episodes way more than that. But that is just me. Mark got me into finally watching all of Lost, and for the first time from the beginning to the end, The Expanse. Yes. I love The Expanse. Recently got those on Blu-rays, and I'm watching them very slowly because I'm focusing more on Star Trek, getting my reviews out. But when I can sneak them in, I watch. Been going through The Expanse. So Stephen Kennedy, super chat. Thank you so much for the super chat. Super awesome of you. Saying my rating for EOE is 10 out of 10, the best. I kept it real, short this time because I seem to go over the top. And who started this out of 10 thing? Congrats on 10 years and you getting your person in 5 years' time. Your pension in 5 years' time. Yeah, goddamn. I want my pension. That would be awesome. But yes, thank you so much, Stephen, for your generosity. Jordan was saying, what content are you looking forward to working on the most this year? Brandon saying it's more than 2 years for Blue, isn't it, Mark? Yeah, you're right. It is 2 years. It's 2 years. Because um, I got the naming Holden like 3 or 4 months after Blue passed, and they're 2 years old, and they weren't like they were several months old when I got them, so they're basically as old as Blue passed away, and they're 2 years old, so it's 2 years. Um, And Norman Buckwald, super chat. Thank you so much. Very generous. Saying 10 for 10. Well, yeah, $10 donation. Thank you so much for your support. So let me get back to Jordan's question. Content I'm looking forward to working this year the most. I mean, I just want to get my Star Trek stuff out of the way. I'm sorry. And here's the my long term plan is once I review every single episode of go through TNG, DS9, Voyager, Enterprise, I'm going to go back and do revisiteds for all the Modern Trek shows, and after that, I'm going to stop my channel. Now, by the time I get there, will be 4 or 5 years from now. So who knows what could happen in the meantime? Maybe I will get a better job or something that's going to distract me and I'm not going to focus on the channel as much. But for this year, I just want to get through these Star Trek reviews as quick as possible. I'm just trying to do at least 3 episodes a week, sometimes 4 if I'm doing a revisited, because revisits are much easier to do. I don't do a green screen or put in pictures. I just talk, add music, boom, done. So when I have revisiteds, I can do more a week, but I don't want to overtax myself. So yeah, let's see. So I'm also looking forward to House of the Dragon. But that's more of, it's not so much I'm looking forward to reviewing it or doing it on my channel. I'm looking forward to watching it. But I'm also looking forward to reviewing it. I think I'm actually going to do actual reviews this time, because last year I only did, or not last year, 2 years ago now, but I only did live streams. And the reason for that was not because I'm a coward, which someone actually accused me of that. It was hilarious. But anyway, it's because I wasn't sure if I'd like it, because the season 8 of Game of Thrones was so terrible, left a bad taste in my mouth. And so I wanted to cover House of the Dragon, give it the benefit of the doubt, but I was tenuous. So I was like, we'll do live streams, so if it sucks, I can just stop the live streams. And I'm not putting that much effort into making these videos. But this year, the plan is, and I don't know if I'll do this because I'm very terrible at doing this. The plan is to make very short reviews, 10 minutes or less, and I suck at doing that, as you can tell now with my Star Trek reviews are an hour long every time. I don't know how that happened. Well, to be fair, the Patreon comments take up some to 10 to 25 minutes. I recently recorded my review because I'm way ahead in recording reviews. I record in a month in advance. And I'm recording season 5 episodes at the moment. And the last video which episode was it? Was it Disaster? Yeah. When I did my review for Disaster, my review was 25 minutes long, but then I added 30 minutes of Patreon comments. So the video ends up being 55 minutes, even though if it was, but I'm not saying that is a bad thing because I like the Patreon comments. Again, because it's that community, that interaction, you get to, it's not just me yapping, you get other people's opinions. So I think it's worth it, but it does make my videos a lot longer. Anyway, it's 9 o'clock. It's time for Alyssa to come in. So let me send her the link. So she can join the conversation. Where are we? There we are. Just give me 1 second. All right. Let's see. Alyssa, hey, your surprise special guest is ready to join. Oh yeah. Yeah. I didn't see that until just now. But sent you the link. You should have it now. Let's see. But it's not a surprise because I did mention it earlier. I was never a fan of GOT, but House of the Dragon is very good. You know, it's funny because my parents actually refused to watch Game of Thrones for years, even though I kept telling them over and over again that they should watch Game of Thrones, and they kept refusing to do it. But finally, they watched House of the Dragon first, and then that made them want to watch Game of Thrones. And they went back and watched Game of Thrones, and then they loved it, just like I said they would, but they didn't freaking believe me. Anyway, Alyssa, hey, what's going on?
Hi! Happy 10th anniversary, Enchantment of Eternity.
Yes.
Yeah. That means that the 10th anniversary for my original channel is coming up later this year, but I don't have an exact date.
Oh, right. Because, well, that channel's gone now, so you can't.
Channel's gone, so I can't look at the date. But what I do remember is that my first video was a Game of Thrones season 4 review where I just did all of season 4 because I was watching your reviews for season 4, but not doing my own. And so I just did one that was all of Game of Thrones season 4. And so the origins of my channel, my Acton Tomko channel, was, Mark knows this, but
yeah,
nobody else knows this, is that Mark and I used to write each other like long ass emails about every episode of Game of Thrones, like pages.
Well, we started that with Lost, but then after Lost ended, we were doing it for Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones, but then you started your channel where you were just doing videos, and then you were expressing your opinion that way. And then I would just respond to your video in an email. And then I was like, you know what would be easier if I just So the original genesis of Acton Tomko's channel was just to respond to Mark with videos. but I missed the boat on season 4. So I just did a season-long review, and then I started in with the prediction videos because Mark was doing prediction videos, so I did my own prediction videos. And then I did the Game of Thrones, how Game of Thrones will end. I remember that was published in December of 2014. But I had already done other prediction videos before that. And so my first one for season 4 is probably sometime in the summer or sometime after.
Yeah, no, I would say so, yeah.
Yeah, so...
Oh, actually, I remember that I came to visit America that summer, and we watched the season 4 finale together. And we're going to do a video on YouTube together, but then I didn't have the equipment with me. And whatever. And we didn't end up doing one.
I thought that was the season 5 finale, because I already had my channel on at that point.
No, it was before. I think it was before you started your channel, because I remember I thought it was the season 4 finale with the brand and the fireballs and whatnot.
Oh, I was gonna do a video before I started my channel.
Oh. Yeah, on my channel, you were gonna do a video with me. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that part I had forgotten, but basically, yeah, it was the main purpose of my channel Acton Tomko's channel was just to communicate with Mark about how I felt about the Game of Thrones, and the next thing you know, I have 6,000 subscribers.
Yeah. Well, I think the same thing that happened to your channel happened to my channel is that it was the prediction videos. Like, I was like, oh yeah, this would be fun. I'll throw some predictions out there, and then boom, it started getting thousands and thousands of views, which I don't think would have happened nowadays because they screw us in the algorithm now. And also, I think we got in before it was like that big, that popular to do predictions. Now everyone, their mother does predictions.
I just answered Jordan Johnson's question here. That's right.
Where's your wine? Right. Oh, hello, Allison. Thank you for your well wishes. All right, so I got a super chat I got to talk about here. Jordan Johnson, another super chat. Thank you so much. Saying, I love Enchantment of Eternity. You have a lot of great content. Star Trek is my favorite show of all time, and I love having this community. You're also fucking hilarious in a good way. Is there a bad way to be fucking hilarious? I guess if you're laughing at someone. But yes, thank you so much.
Hi, Allison.
So, what was I gonna say? There was like, you have a great. God, no, there was something that I was gonna say.
Stephen Kennedy has a question for me.
Okay, sure, yeah, go for it.
How did you come up with the name? I'm assuming Alyssa. My first thought was from Alyssa from Chasing Amy. That's my favorite comedy. I saw that movie, but I didn't know it well enough that I would know any of the characters.
Yeah, I saw that movie like 3 or 4 times, and I don't remember that character being called Alyssa.
Yeah, so no, it was a name that I had always thought of for myself, like years and years before I ever came out, because it has the same first 2 letters of my previous name. So it would be like an easy, I didn't want to do, so one of my versions of my previous name was Alex, and I didn't want to just do like Alexis or Alexa or even.
Oh, no, definitely not Alexa.
Well, I mean, it was before Alexa, so I wouldn't have known when I was first thinking of these things.
Yeah.
Or Alexandra, because that's just, I mean, there are trans women who are like their birth name is Paul and they're Paula. That's good for them. I would never want to do that. Like that, I need something that's more distinct from my previous name, but also it had the same first 2 letters. So, and then, so that was the name that I always thought of. And then when it was time to make the actual change, I also considered that what a pain in the ass it is to change your email address at work, and they just use your first initial and your last name. And so I was like, well, I won't have to change my email address. I mean, I was already going to do that anyway. Yeah. So but that was definitely like, I thought of that as a bonus. And then my middle name, Jean, Alyssa Jean, was because I self-published the novel Daughter of the Sun with the name A.J. Tomko already. And so I just figured in case I wanted to keep using that name, I would just be Alyssa Jean, so it fits. So that's where the Jean comes from. So that is the origin story. I thought you were asking how I came up with Acton Tomko, and I don't actually remember how I came up with Acton Tomko.
I remember you telling that story before.
Yeah, about how I came up with Acton Tomko. I think it was because of I was married at the time, and we had a hyphenated name, and so I was like, my initials were AKT.
Oh, yeah.
Because my married name was, the initials were KT. And my initials became AOKT, but it was whatever. It was good. So I think that's where Acton came from, and then I just I just did a bastardization of my last name and put a K in there and made it Acton Tomko. But I don't think that's what you were asking. But that's the origins of Acton Tomko.
Yeah. So
Alyssa. Yeah, there is an Alyssa on TNG, but I mean,
Yeah, see, that's what I thought of when I first heard your name. I thought of
yeah.
Alyssa Ogawa.
No, I just think of her as Nurse Ogawa. I don't even ever think of
uh,
her from by her first name. But yeah, that is her first name. Um, but if I were naming myself after anyone, and I didn't, I want to make this clear, I didn't. But it would be Alyssa Milano because that's who uh, Alyssa Milano, who's the boss. She
oh,
was Tony Danza's daughter, and then she grew up.
really?
Uh, now
Barely remember her.
I was a big sitcom fan. Um, she was kind of my first crush when I was a kid, which is weird. And like now I have that name, but it has nothing to do with. It's not. I didn't name myself because of that, but she was kind of the earliest crush, celebrity crush I remember having when I was like a kid, and she was a kid. She was a little old. I think she's slightly older than me. And then she doesn't really do much acting anymore. I think she went on that what was the show with Charmed? I think she was on that. She did
Yeah.
an adult, but I think she's mainly known now for her like center left kind of middle of the road political views. Like she does a lot
I
of
haven't heard any of that, any political stuff from her.
Oh yeah, no, she maybe not as much in the last year or two, but like she was all I always saw her all over the news all the time and her tweets. She was very, she's very anti-Trump, but she's also kind of more in the center of things. She's a little
Yeah.
bit DC head than I would be, but like that's kind of mostly what I would ever see her in the news
I
for.
thought that I was wrong about this because I didn't really pay any attention to her, but I thought that she was turned into like a big conservative, what do you call it? Evangelical
No,
Christian?
not Alyssa Milano. No,
No, it
she's
wasn't her. It was, I'm thinking of, I got her confused with, what's his face? Kirk Cameron.
yeah, no, was an extreme right.
Yeah.
He started like he was a born again Christian before Growing Pains was over, and that's why they had a storyline where he in the last season when it jumped the shark. He had a storyline where he went and was joined the Big Brother Big Sister program, and he was a big brother to Leonardo DiCaprio, a young Leonardo
Oh,
DiCaprio.
wow. I didn't know about
That
that.
whole storyline was because like he became this born again Christian. He was like, I want my character to like do some good, do something, which was not a bad thing. So I guess he started off as like an actual like good Christian. It was like I wanted my character to do good things, but then he, gets evolved into an evangelical like extreme right wing nut job.
Anyway, I wanted to address Brandon, who said, I went to my GP a week ago and one of the receptionists called me by my dead name. I was so angry. Yeah, you should be angry. That's pretty fucked up. Well, maybe they've just fucked up, but still, it's pretty shitty. Oh yeah, so I was gonna say like there was a lot of comments earlier about people having to worrying about us activating the A word because we said her name too loud. I don't have her here, so I don't have to worry about that.
Wait, what? What?
I don't Alexa. I don't want to say too loud because I don't
Oh,
want to activate
no,
their.
I don't have an Alexa, so I
Yeah.
Alexa.
But sometimes she like will just talking about something that's completely unrelated to her, and she'll just start yapping at us. I'm like, what? No one's talking to you.
I don't know. I've never found Alexa or the Google thing. There's a Google version too.
Yeah, as a hello Google, I had friends who did that.
I've
Yeah.
never found it necessary. Like, what do I need that for? Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm just an old fogey, but like, I get by and like fine without having a thing that I can talk
Yeah,
to.
it's not that. Yeah, it's not that helpful. I think.
I've just never found it necessary.
I guess it makes you feel like Star Trek because you can give voice commands.
Yeah, I mean that's what I use Siri for.
I was gonna say because I remember you telling the story about how you got drunk and you were saying locate Commander Riker. I said that to Alexa to see what she would say, and she said, "Here's what I can find. Commander Riker is from Alaska."
That's better than what Siri can do.
Yeah.
I would say, well, I would often say locate Commander Data, and so she would give me like computer stores and stuff. This is where you get. But then I would, if I would like really press the issue, like no, locate Commander Data, like then eventually it would devolve into like nonsense, like the lobster went to the store with a hat or something. Like she would just say this like nonsensical sentence. Like after a while, if I kept pushing it, Siri would just break down. Like,
So
I wanted her to say Commander Data is not aboard the Enterprise.
yeah, I mean, the Alaska's closed, but it's supposed to say Commander Riker's not on board the ship. Jeez. There was like, I think I told you about this. There was a Star Trek drinking game I played once that had all the other things that you drink. And if someone asks for someone's location, you're supposed to take a drink. But if the computer responds that person's not on the ship, you're supposed to drink the rest of your drink. There was something I wanted to ask you because I just watched for my upcoming reviews. I just watched the TNG episode, The Game. And am I remembering correctly that you called that's your least favorite episode of all of TNG?
All of Star Trek. It's my least favorite. I am kind of reconsidering whether it's really my least favorite of all of Star Trek.
Oh, of all of Star Trek, not just TNG.
Oh no, just TNG, not all of Star Trek. You're right, not just of TNG. You're right, just TNG. And I am kind of even reconsidering that just for TNG, but it is an episode that always drove me crazy because you go to the trouble of bringing Will Wheaton back just to recreate the Wesley Mary Sue story from the and then like whenever I would like my worst TNG video, like the most common response and argument to me was like, yeah, but Ashley Judd is hot. And I'm like, okay.
Well, here's the thing. Like, it's not so much that she's hot, is that I liked her acting and I liked her character and I liked her chemistry with Wesley. So that's the one hanging thing, the one thing about the episode that I liked.
It's just completely overruled by just how ridiculous.
Yeah, I'm maybe starting to change my mind on that too, because I've given it a 2 in the past. Just give it 1 point for that Ashley Judd. But I don't know. I just watched it and I was like, yeah, it's the rest of the episode is like the worst shit. It's the dumbest shit. The whole
so bad. Thing, like Riker bringing this game back, and that people would like actually play it I always point out that Picard and Worf first playing the game was off screen because they couldn't have it on screen because it would look so ridiculous and out of character. There's no way in hell that either Picard or Worf would ever put that stupid game on their head. Like, as
do you know what? I heard a theory, and I'm not buying it. It's bullshit. But I heard a theory is that the people, you know how they pinned down Wesley and made him open his eyes and put the game on him? Theory is that they did that to Picard. And that's how they got him to watch.
Yeah, but I feel like Picard was kind of earlier on. There wasn't enough.
Yeah, he was. I think that's why I don't buy it. I think it's a stretch.
Yeah, but it's like that's why it's off screen because you just wouldn't say, well, imagine.
Yeah. And Worf, like they couldn't pin down Worf.
Yeah,
and he would never play that stupid game.
Yeah, and I mean,
you probably like games are for children.
Yeah, exactly. It combines 2 tropes that I hate. One is the Wesley is a Mary Sue trope, and Wesley saves the whole ship. And 2 is I've just never been a fan of this. Like everybody gets infected by this thing.
Yeah.
Kind of like this, like the zombie thing. Everybody gradually turns into zombies or whatever, and you go dun dun dun. Picard's I don't know, like it's just so cheesy and so terrible. And like I mean, Is it really worse than Dr. Crusher fucking a ghost? Probably not. I probably should actually really put that as my number one
Yeah.
worst. But I just hate this episode so much for so many reasons because it just hits on nerves. It just like hits on like just tropes that I really hate. It just like pushes all the wrong buttons for me.
So something I noticed is that the fight scene or the chase scene when they're chasing Wesley at the end, with Riker and Worf and everyone gangs up and they're running after Wesley trying to catch him. When I was thinking about it was such a goofy chase scene. It was so ridiculous. I was picturing the Benny Hill theme music playing during that. So I actually got out and put the Benny Hill music on and like turned the volume down and like fast forwarded so it's moving slightly faster and it was like perfect. It was like those so Benny Hill like da, 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 da. It was just so goofy. But anyway, Allison asked earlier, that begs the question, what's your least favorite in all of Star Trek? I believe she means least favorite episode.
Well, you did your top 10. Least
Yeah.
Star Trek.
But it's Profit and Lace. Is that the same for you?
I think it's the same for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I a little bit of a side note, but I was watching Steve Shives did a series recently where he was reviewing all the like what are considered to be like the worst episodes.
Yeah.
Like not necessarily what he personally has picked, but like what are largely considered by fans to be the worst episodes. And I had every time I tried watching one of them, he would pick a horrible episode. Like he did Dear Doctor, he did Crawford and Lace. And I would start watching and he would go, well, I think this episode's not that bad. And I'd be like, what? It's like, it's bad, but it's not as bad as people say it is. And I'm like, no. And the Prophet and Lace thing particularly annoyed me because I actually consider him to be a very great trans ally. He's done some great videos in support of the trans community, but I tend to agree with him a lot more on his political stuff than I do
Star Trek.
And even like just like not really connecting the dots on how this like how misogynistic that episode is, Prophet and Lace, and not just anti-trans.
Well, I don't think he did Prophet and Lace, did he? I know
I think he mentioned it in another video.
Oh, okay, yeah. For DS9, he did.
There was
Meridian.
It was a different topic in Prophet and Lace.
Oh yeah,
episodes that he talked about, but he did say that Prophet and Lace is better than people say.
So what he did for Enterprise, he did a night in sick bay, and for that he was saying it's not as bad as people.
That's
say.
what I'm talking about. What did I say?
You said Dear Doctor.
Yeah, I always get the title.
Dear Doctor is a good episode, but that's the problem. And I actually made a comment arguing with him about it. He's like, oh, well, there's other episodes everyone considers the worst episode of the Enterprise, like Dear Doctor. I'm like, that's not true.
First episode, yeah. Jesse even called it an overrated episode because people like it, and she said she wasn't liking it as much as people tend to. So how can you call it overrated if people don't like it?
I would say it's polarizing. There's some people who hate it, and there's some people who love it.
Yeah. So, I meant to say Night in Sick Bay. I unfortunately get those titles mixed up a lot. Both of them revolve around Dr. Phlox. But I meant, when I said he said it was not that bad, I was talking about Night in Sick Bay.
Allison is saying the Warp 10 one from Voyager where Paris and Janeway become giant salamander thingies. That I don't think that's definitely a terrible, terrible episode, but I wouldn't consider it among the worst simply because
Threshold.
Threshold. It doesn't go off the rails until the end, until they turn into salamanders. Like the first half is just boring. It's just a boring body horror. He's turning into a monster, and it doesn't get truly ridiculous until the end where you're just like, what? And even then it's like kind of a spectacle to watch because you wonder what the fuck the writers were smoking when they came up with this shit.
that's one of those things that what bothers me the most about that episode is that now it's canon. But the fact that you turn into salamanders when you go over warp 10 is now canon. And I just wanted Discovery or some other show, probably Discovery because it's in the future of that, or even Lower Decks, something that's in the
Yeah.
future of that episode to contradict that and make canon that no, you don't turn into salamanders. I don't know
Yeah.
what 10 and
Well,
just like retcon.
it's somewhat a good thing it's canon because Lower Decks is making fun of it.
Yeah.
They had one of those salamander thingies. um, So hold on. Oh yeah, Norman is saying Steve's favorite episode was Breaking the Ice in Enterprise. God, I hate that episode. It's one of my least favorite episodes. Do you remember that one?
Which one is that?
So it's from season 1. It's when they find a comet and the Vulcans like are looking after them. They're being dicks. And like Reed and Mayweather go to the comet and they build a snowman. I think it's one of the most boring episodes, and it represents everything I hate. Well, except for the over sexualization, it doesn't have that. But everything else I hate about Enterprise season 1, it represents. It has the Vulcans being dickheads for no reasons. It has the crew being incompetent, and it's boring as fuck. So to me, that is like I wouldn't call it the worst episode of the Enterprise, but for me, it represents everything that I hate.
Yeah, now that you put in context of what I don't know the titles as well in Enterprise.
Yeah.
But if you say the one where they went on the comet and built the snowman, my memory of that episode, it was boring as fuck. Like it was such a boring episode.
Yes. And there's other people I heard who like it, like Wes from Penske File loved it too. I'm like, well, why? Like, I don't know. I don't get it. Oh yeah, Jordan Johnson, another super chat saying, "How about Girardi? Lovely voice, am I right?" Oh yeah. Well, yeah. I don't know. What's that episode called again? 2 of 1 or something?
Yeah.
That would be a contender for worst episode of this franchise, but I don't think it's the worst though. It doesn't beat out Prophet and Lace.
Yeah, I actually had it as number 2 of my least favorite of
the franchise
of Modern Trek.
Oh, Modern Trek.
So I know it's not number 1 for the whole franchise because I don't even have it as number 1 as Modern Trek.
What was your number 1 for Modern Trek then? If it wasn't that one,
you don't remember which one? What episode I complained about? I'll give you a hint. It's from Lower Decks in an otherwise great season.
Oh, really? You chose that as the worst? As
that's the least favorite, to be fair.
Oh, wow. Oh, least favorite, yeah.
In Modern Trek, and 2 of 1 was number 2.
Wow.
Because that episode just pisses me off. 2 of 1 was within the context of a season that sucked anyway. So
that's what makes it worse, I think, because you gotta think it for the whole season.
Like the whole season was crap, so you expect that. But season 3 of season 3 or season 4? Season 4. No, wait. What season did we just have? So we had just had season 4. Season 3 of Lower Decks was an incredible season. And then they throw like this just terrible episode. I think within the context of the season is what really, really, really bugged me about that episode, because they were doing all these great character stories prior to that. And they just completely pulled the rug out from under those character stories and focused on the world's most obnoxious character instead. And left our characters completely out until like halfway through it, or even more than halfway through it. And we're focusing on the world's most annoying character instead, after I'd gone through the season of these wonderful character stories. So that just really pissed me off. So that's why it's number 1. Whereas 2 of 1, at that point, like, I mean, it was the Jump the Shark episode of that season, but it kind of like, I'd given up on the season already. It was already, that season was lost anyways.
Yeah, for me, it's easily 2 of 1. I don't think there's anything in Modern Trek that comes in close to 2 of 1, but that's just my own. I didn't hate the Peanut Hamper one as much as you did. I didn't like it, but I wasn't as down on it. But I wanted to shout out another comments people were saying about their worst episodes. Norman saying my least liked Voyager is The Fight. and Tuvix is a close second. Yeah, the fight was my second worst of the entire franchise. I don't know, but I don't know if it's fair to call it my least favorite though, because I think it's an objectively terrible episode, but I have fun laughing at how stupid. It's the only. I'm not really into so bad's good stuff, but it's the only episode of Star Trek when the first time I watched it, I laughed hysterically at how terrible it was. It was just copying freaking. It was the same plot for Night Terrors. And then it was copying, it was trying to do the prophet things where they had visions of different people talking. But it made no fucking sense because it was in the middle of a boxing match. We're like, what the fuck does boxing have to do with I don't know. And Allison was saying it doesn't include the phrase, I want to live. Oh, Tuvix. Good old Tuvix. All right, so I can't remember what you had. You did a worst list, right? Of the franchise?
I didn't ever do one.
Oh, you didn't? Okay. Because I had
ones from each show, but no.
Oh, right. What was Tuvix on your Voyager thing then?
Tuvix was 2 or 3.
Yeah.
I think it was 3. My least favorite Voyager is like not anyone else's least favorite Voyager. It's kind of like the game. It just like hit all the wrong buttons.
Oh wait, was it the Christine ripoff one with the talking ship? What's it called?
Alice.
Yeah. Alice, yeah.
But also, I mean, Christine, but I kind of thought of it as like it's another version of Fatal Attraction too.
Another surprise cameo.
Oh, I feel so unimaginative with my name choice now.
Darren, from these reviews, where did you come from?
What? Oh,
yeah, yeah, we're all. I mean, the names are a little on the nose, but I mean, come on, we gotta celebrate. So let's
yeah,
go all on.
Exactly. So Darren, we're talking about our worst or least favorite Star Trek episodes. Do you have any that come to your mind?
Ooh,
well, while he's thinking on that, I want to comment on what Norman said. Fatal Attraction episode is Alter Ego, also a Fatal Attraction episode, but Alice also a Fatal.
Oh, I think of Alice as more of a Christine ripoff.
Yeah, well, I don't know. It's kind of both to me.
But yeah, Alter Ego, actually, I hate that episode more than Alice. To me, that's like the character in that thing even says to Tuvok, "I won't be ignored," and I'm like, that's what the fuck said in Fatal Attraction.
I've probably burned most of those out of my memory. It's like if I don't like well, I've kind of realized that when I was talking at your last big 20, top 25 countdown for Star Trek episodes, my comment of like, it seems just a standard Star Trek. No, I think that because those are the type of episodes I like, and the other ones I blot out of my mind. I mean, occasionally they get like good stuff like, I'm in the middle of DS9 right now, and you've got was it the Peak? Where Odo and Quark have to climb up the mountain and so on, which is kind of an annoying episode, but it has some really good character and kind of reveal and internal stuff, which I think sort of redeems it. But same season, and again, I got to write these things down. The episode where they all go to Risa and Worf joins this like anti-Joy brigade and like does the most un-Starfleet things possible, and like nobody brings it up, nobody asks, it's never brought up. It's like
that was up high in my Deep Space Nine top 10 worst episodes.
Yeah.
That he who is without sin.
That's the one, exactly.
Yeah. Everyone hates that episode. The writers hate that episode. The actors hate that episode.
Yeah,
nobody likes that episode.
Well, I was gonna say it's definitely would be up there on my list as well, because it's like, okay, not only is this kind of not even an interesting story, but nobody acts the way that they should through all of it, and it's just
like, and Worf's story about like killing a kid during a soccer game like was ridiculous. It was comically bad.
not saying that's like the Anakin, episode 3 twist right there, but just like I want some sympathy. This is when I killed a child because I was too aggressive, so now I must be quiet. Jeez, man.
All right,
No,
so
no
got another,
childhood joy for him. Sorry, go ahead.
got another super chat from Jordan. Thank you so much. Saying Coda, go to hell. Yeah, Coda is an episode that I hate. Is one of my least favorites. Not it. Most people don't like. You just think it's mediocre, like right, Alyssa? Like most people just like.
Yeah, I just think it's
like,
fine.
yeah.
You always say this is comically bad. I don't see it that way. I think it's fine. Like I don't see it as really bad acting.
I don't know if it's like comically bad, but I think it's the worst written episode. I think it just slapped together all these different things that don't fit, and well, actually, it does get comically bad at the end, where
at the end, and I'm like, I don't think that's that bad. It's fine. Like I don't know. I don't think it's a good episode, but like I think it fails at what it's trying to do. But I don't think it's. I would put it more in the middle. I wouldn't put it anywhere.
I think I was just pissed off because it started out in a time loop, and I was like, "Yes, a time loop!" But then it just turns into this stupid energy monster trying to kill Janeway. I'm like, "That's fucking stupid."
Yeah, don't give me the promise of a good time loop sci-fi show and then disrupt that. It's like, no, that's.
Do you know what episode I'm talking about, Darren? Did you see that one?
I don't think I have yet. I might have. If it's early, I might have skipped over it in my midst of Voyager stuff.
Yeah. It's worth skipping over.
Okay, well, see, there you go.
Voyager to me is just a series full of so many mediocre episodes.
Yes,
so many episodes that fail at what they're trying to do, and so that I just put it right in that bunch with many other episodes. So it's not any. It doesn't stand out to me as being any particularly bad to me, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, Norman is saying that the soccer game story is perhaps worst moment on screen. Yeah, I think so. I'm hard pressed to think of a worse moment for Worf.
I'm sure there are some. Into TNG season 7 with the Troy romance, you probably could find something.
I
don't know if that's worse than the soccer story.
Well, because it's also told. It's so weird. It's like you can it kind of telegraphs where it's going, but it doesn't have that big emotional build. It's just him kind of like solidly reflexing in his Worf way of like this horrible thing, and it seems so incongruent with everything else. It's like, where did this come from?
Jordan's saying, Mark, can you quote the line Janeway's dad says for me? The line just before Janeway says, go to hell. I don't remember that episode that well. I don't remember what that line is. I try to block that episode out of my memory. Oh, yeah. Brandon says Worf in a mud bath in season 5. I thought
that was funny, actually.
Yeah, I didn't think that was a terrible moment. That came to mind, but I dismissed it because it's actually not a. It was
when Worf is like covered in the mud up to his look on his face. I mean, that's hilarious. That's a good moment. I'm sorry, but that's not even close to one of his worst. I think it's funny.
Yeah, I actually like.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of humor in that episode. It's kind of dumb, but it's not as bad as you might think it is, in my opinion.
I actually like Cost of Living. Okay.
Yeah,
I think it's a decent episode.
Like, you always use the code the higher the fewer.
Yeah. Or the other line that's hilarious when Worf was saying, I do not yell.
Okay, Brandon, you're really disagreeing with me. You're really striking. You're picking good Worf moments. That was awesome. What are you talking about? I don't know.
Yeah. Not as funny as
especially I don't know about Worf fighting Raffi in particular, but the Worf and Raffi chemistry. I mean, that was like the highlight of Picard.
Yeah, that's one of the good things about Picard season 3.
Yeah.
A fistful of datas, though. That
I think to me it's more Brent Spiner in that episode than Worf.
Yeah.
Brent Spiner, when he tries to do anything but Data, just really, when he tries to be funny, I just cringe. Like I just all those different characters he does. And I guess other people do find it funny because people like this episode, but I think it's just very cringy. Like Brent Spiner, just stick to Data, please.
See, I hated that episode too, but I like the episode Masks that everyone else hates. Because I actually like Brent Spiner doing all the different voices. I think he does a good job, but everyone else seems to think he sucks. But...
Yeah, I see. That's another one where him doing all the different voices. I'm like, just do Data. You can do Lore too. Lore's fine, but like,
Brent Spiner is Star Trek's version of like Michael Shanks was in Stargate SG-1. He's the actor that has to play all the different kind of crazy background parts and wants to do so many things.
Yeah.
It's like every show has them. Every sci-fi show has to have the one actor that like wants to play like 50 roles.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's true. That is true. He needs to stop playing relatives of Soong, though. Like, how many fucking relatives?
I'm Soong's great grandnephew. Best friend.
Data.
Mate.
He's an android, but he's the character in all of Star Trek that we've seen the most relatives of.
Yeah.
By far, we've seen.
What he has a brother, a mother, a father, a stepbrother, a long lost younger brother,
The grandfather.
Yeah. Grandfather, yeah.
Wait for it. And he's going to show up in Strange New Worlds. He's just going to be Fred. Hi, I'm just Fred. Just a guy.
And then if you count all those other Soongs, like from all the other shows, if you count them as dated relatives, then that's just...
Yeah. Although Brandon says war fighting... Oh, no, not that. It was Norman who said the crashes the happy ball. That was a funny moment, too.
Wait, crushes the happy ball?
Yeah, and the higher the fewer, that episode, there was this like ball is supposed to make you happy.
Yeah, now Worf being a grump in that episode was really funny.
Yeah, I was going to say that. See, that's when Worf is used really well to just crush the happy ball, you know.
And let's see. Brandon says, I adore masks. We're right, they're wrong. Thanks, Brandon. I didn't know you liked that one. But
I guess
B4. I did mention B4 because I said his younger long lost brother. That's who I was talking about.
I guess masks to me is not, it doesn't stand out as like one of the worst. Like I wouldn't put it in my top 10 worst or anything, but it's not good. Like I don't think it's good. I loved it when Lower Decks did the parody of it.
And Stephen Kennedy, of course, says "Move along home." Move along.
Everyone's favorite.
I actually don't think that episode is that bad. I think it's just moderately bad, not like the worst ever. I was actually so shocked when I heard so many people thought it was one of the worst episodes of Deep Space Nine.
I'm one who thinks
you're one. Okay.
Well, you all have heard me say that it's only a game. Like that pisses me off. It's only a waste of the last time of my life because there were never any stakes. Why was I watching this stupid episode? So it's a terrible episode. I think if the stakes were real, then I wouldn't hate it as much. But the fact that it was only a game, then it's like, fuck you. Like,
I actually find it
time when there's no stakes.
I see what you're saying, definitely. But if you don't take the episode seriously, I actually find that hilarious when he goes, it's only a game. Just because it shows how bad the episode is.
Yeah, I do take it seriously because it's fucking Deep Space Nine, and it is not Lower Decks. It's not a comedy show.
Well, no, that's fair.
You would expect this out of Voyager, but not DS. No.
It was the first season.
Yeah, it was the first season.
But again, another one that Lower Decks did a great parody.
Oh, yes. And you keep putting people in games. Stop putting people in games. But Darren, you mentioned the episode The Ascent, the one with Odo and Quark. crashing on the planet. I actually hate that episode. Some people love it, but I usually love Quark and Odo together. Like they have great chemistry. But in that episode, I just found them annoying. I just found them like, I hate you too.
Well, it is representative of the kind of episode that I do dislike. It's just like the side character arguing episode and stuff. I mean, obviously you have more of those in like DS9 and Voyager than you have in Star Trek, where they tried to minimize a lot of that character stuff. But the little side missions that are kind of pointless. I think rewatching it, the only thing it was like towards the end, there was a little bit of kind of that little good Odo breakthrough discussions with those little reveals of what they feel and how they think, and where you're like, this is kind of a good little character bit here, but that's like a minute and a half out of the whole episode. It's hard to redeem that.
And the whole shuttle crashing on the planet and being trapped is such a boring cliche that they've done 1 billion times, and I'm just.
And it was never good in the first place. Like
no.
The TOS episode, you actually gave it a more negative review than I did, but
Galileo 7?
Galileo 7,
I hate that episode. It's got this fake monster costume with a big styrofoam rock.
So I was gonna say, but I did really enjoy, the one thing I did enjoy the Ascent was the obviously phone paneled put together radio thing that they're pulling up, that they move sometimes, and you can see it's like a cooler that they've add decorative little panels on top of. They're just swinging it around like, oh, it's a big heavy thing. One piece of Star Trek technology that isn't tiny. Thank you.
Yeah. I'm going to agree with Norman. I also would say I like Ascent more than Shuttlepod 1. I think it seems like I dislike Shuttlepod 1 more than other people, but I fucking hated that episode.
Yeah, I don't like that episode either. But, it was funny because I was watching the podcast that Connor Trenier and what's that other dude? The guy who plays Malcolm Reed. Dominic Keaton?
Yeah, Keating.
Yeah, Keating. Okay, yeah. So the two of them do a podcast, and they always, I was watching it for a while, and they repeatedly talk about how that's their favorite episode.
Yeah, because they got to just probably just do whatever, and they probably have fun making it, I'm sure, but it was not enjoyable for the rest of us.
So the person I love to constantly hate on, Rick Berman, said that was his favorite episode of the whole Star Trek franchise.
The whole Star Trek franchise?
Yeah, not just Enterprise, the whole Star Trek franchise.
Rick Berman is a moron.
Yes, he is. That's what I've been saying. All right.
Rick Berman is Star Trek.
Yeah.
No, I completely agree.
I got another super chat, this time $5. Jordan, thanks so much giving super chat. So I think what you said was the line you were talking about that the monster says before Janeway says go to hell. I didn't remember this. It's one day you will come into my vortex and I will feed all off of you. Yeah, it's such a cheesy episode. Such a bad episode. But anyway, Stephen Kennedy mentions the Muse. # fuck the Muse. Easily one of the worst episodes. Oh, you saw that. You must have seen that recently, Darren. The D Space Nine episode where Jake gets someone comes in the woman that's like teaching him how to write.
Again, these are the episodes where it's like, and and I forget about it because I haven't been watching a whole lot in a lot of chunks, and I realize it's like those are so much of like the meat of a lot of seasons, or these like little odd side stories, and then it's like, then there's like 5 in the season that you're going, these are awesome. I mean, give or take, but yeah, I don't like these stories.
And then there's the Voyager episode just called Muse, which also not very good.
Also sucks, but not as bad. But
not as bad.
Come on, Jake, let me feed on your creativity. Whoa.
Norman says
that was probably the better of the two storylines, in my opinion. Like I hated the whole Loxana Troy thing. Like that was so stupid. Anyways,
hold on.
Like Odo pretending to be her
Yeah. No.
There's the whole thing.
I am not a big Loxana Troy fan, I have to say. I mean, occasionally it can be fine, but most of the time I tend to find those to be very annoying episodes.
All right, but here's a huge argument I had over Luxon and Troy though, is that I've heard some people say that they love her Deep Space Nine stuff better than the TNG stuff, and I think her Deep Space Nine stuff are worse because she has no business being there, and she's just drooling over Odo the whole time. That's not better. I just watched. I did a review for Half of Life. I don't know if I. No, I didn't release it yet, but I love that episode. That's easily my best Loxana Troy episode. Dark Page was another good episode. Cost of Living, as I said, was kind of funny. I actually like Haven. I think that was kind of funny as well. The only bad Loxana Troy, the really bad Loxana Troy in Next Generation is Manhunt, which is one of the worst episodes ever, but that's the only really terrible one. Like Menage a Troy is just okay.
Yeah, but see, that already tells me there's way too many Loxana Troy episodes. So,
Yeah, she didn't. She was in Deep Space Nine to begin with. There was no reason for her to be there. She never should have been on Deep Space Nine.
No.
In all of her, yeah, I agree with you. There's some redeemable ones in TNG. There are none in DS9. I think they're all terrible in DS9.
Yeah, a lot of people are like, "Oh, but that moment where Odo melts in her lap when they're trapped in the elevator was so good." And I was like, "It was fine, but it doesn't make that episode not suck."
and thank you, Brandon. Also agree, I believe, about the Loxana episodes. Too many.
So was it? Yeah, where was it? Up here. Yeah. So Norman Buckwald's saying time to get the Rick Berman pillow and throw it across the room. So that was a bit like this YouTube channel I watch where there's a bit where he constantly gets up a pillow and he's like, "Hi, I'm Rick Berman," and then he gets it. So I started doing that.
Well, I don't think we need violence here.
Yeah. Let's see. Okay, so I want to switch topics to Star Wars. Darren, have you seen the Bad Batch season 3?
I have. I was very excited to finally get that all wrapped up.
So, without giving any spoilers, because not everyone here has seen it, just want to get. I read your written review, Alyssa, on it, so I know what you think about it. But so I'll start with Darren. What do you think of it?
I mean, it was fine. I think they ended it kind of well to wrapping up in the third season. Honestly, a lot of it felt kind of rushed. And in fact, even watching the last episode, it felt like there were ideas and somebody was like, "All right, guys, we got to go. So we're going to just wrap up as many things as you can and we're out." I mean, I appreciate, there's one thing to just appreciate a story that sort of ends, and the idea of like, of what the Clone Force 99, what their reasons for their final decisions and such, I think kind of made sense. But I think there's also a lot of threads that were sort of picked up or laid, especially even through this last season, that either didn't go anywhere or implied some choices or things happening that didn't end up happening. So while I think it worked just to wrap up its series, it felt like that there was a bigger idea, there was more stuff, that it felt kind of like cut off, like, okay, like I said, just let's wrap it up. We got to get out of here. Time's up.
Yeah. I don't disagree with that. I will reiterate my take. If Mark read I wrote a review on my Facebook page, but I felt after season 2, if we're avoiding spoilers, I will just say there is a very emotional, let's say, death in the final episode, and then prior to that, I will just say, if you know, the Crosshair episode, to me, the best episode of the series. Because even though it was a trope that I had seen before, but I thought it was so well done and so powerful. And like, it just, It was heart wrenching, and I didn't get that emotion in season 3, especially not in the finale. So my whole review was I thought they were playing it too safe. Like they didn't do anything that really pulled on the heartstrings for me. I did hear, like, I read something about the showrunner saying, like, "Oh, that epilogue scene, I dare you to watch it without crying." I'm like, easily. And to me, it was just like, "Oh, look at this is cool. Look at Omega," and that's all it was to me. I didn't find there was nothing really emotional. I felt that it was like a standard ending. Okay, good guys win. They rescue everybody. They rescue all the kids. And sorry, I am spoiling things a little bit, but whatever. Good guys win, bad guys lose. Good guys live happily ever after. There's the spoiler. Sorry, but that's like it was very, very like they were playing it too safe. They didn't do anything. I don't say they necessarily have to kill people off, but to just do something to really pull on my heartstrings and make it really emotional the way they did in season 2. That I just didn't think they did that in season 3. I just thought it was like it was fine. It's fine. This is our standard ending. Good guys win. Blah blah blah. But I just found it kind of boring. I guess I don't know. I don't know. I wanted more out of it. Especially after season 2 did a lot for me emotionally, and season 3 just didn't. So that's kind of where I feel.
Well, and I think from a large even production standpoint, it does seem to indicate a desire, at least for Star Wars, to leave that particular era. That where that it moves to and so on. Again, I trying not to be too spoiler here.
I just gonna spoil the ending, but whatever. Yes.
But yeah.
So I'm the standout for me too. I'm a bit different because I wasn't as impressed with season 2 of Bad Batch, and in fact, I look back and I think, yeah, it's fine. In fact, I wasn't motivated at all to watch this season. Like I had to force myself to watch it because I didn't really care that much about Bad Batch. Like to me, it's easily my least favorite Star Wars cartoon out of the 3 main ones, Clone Wars and Rebels. And so my expectations were on the floor when I started watching the season. So the season exceeded my expectations. It was a lot better than I thought it would be. And I really liked the ending. I wouldn't say that I cried, but I thought it was very emotionally powerful. I was moved by it. I thought it worked.
Which spoilers, because I want to know specifically what moved you. I'm just out of curiosity.
Well, that final scene.
Oh, okay. Yeah, to me, it's just like, oh, cool. Look, what Omega's life is like later.
It's showing like the whole journey and growth. How the whole point of this show is that the clones are more than just their programming, and that they can be something different and grow and become free and make their own decisions. So that's actually more of the ending before the epilogue, though.
Yeah, that's the ending. Like the epilogue is unnecessary, other than, oh, look at this. This is what Omega does later in her life.
I don't think it's on that. I actually love the epilogue. I love when shows jump forward and show us like the future, what happens.
The point that you just made, I think you cut the epilogue out and that point is made. Like you don't need the epilogue to make that point. Like that is made by the previous ending. The first ending makes that point.
Well, yeah, no, I think that you're right. That first ending does make that point, but I think the epilogue sort of emphasizes the personal relationship that she had with Hunter, and it was kind of, well, we're pretty much spoiling this now, but that's okay.
It just
spoiler alert, everyone, just for now on.
Yeah. And you can't talk about it without spoiling it. Sorry. It's just redundant. Like the epilogue was redundant as far as the message it was. So the only point of it is to show what Omega is doing. And then, but that's fine. It's cool. Like I thought I was interested in that. I mean, I'm not saying it was bad. Like it was cool, but it wasn't emotional because it didn't give me anything new. Like,
yeah. See, I thought it was emotional, but I didn't think it was cry worthy. I didn't like. But that was my favorite season of the show.
Easily. Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to say that it was
season. Oh, sorry, Darren, but I just thought the whole season had like a perfect structure of it had less like filler. It didn't have like a stupid pod race episode or any bullshit like that. It had, although I think the Ventrix episode was pure filler, but it wasn't terrible, so I'm okay with that. But yeah, I think it was.
Yeah, it was purely like, ooh, look at this.
Yeah. But I think the whole season was better at like keeping you in suspense and telling a prolonged story. But anyway, Darren, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say I think that it was an excellent season. I thought they wrapped it up very well. I just think that things like the Ventress episodes and stuff seem to imply, especially with where they were as the season was ending, that like it felt like this was going to lead into another show, even if there was a bit of a time break or something, that there was some connective tissue they were forming. So at the end, when it is pretty much like, and that's the Clone Force 99 story. Da, 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 da. Again, beautiful stuff, and I love what they did with Crosshair and his whole little bit of redemption arc, and the kind of like, his replacement with Tech, but also how Tech's loss was so important to the team. I mean, I think they hit a couple of really nice bits at the end there. But it's just once they kind of did that time jump, it was very much like, oh, okay, so this show is definitely done, and we're not touching these characters or again anymore.
I actually like that. I like that they tied up. They didn't leave it open for more shit that they know.
Well, the first thing I heard is all this talk about, oh, they're going to do an Omega spinoff.
Well, yeah, they left that open, like, but they jump in the future, so you're not still stuck in that same time period. Which I'm kind of I'm over that time period, to be honest.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. It felt like they were definitely moving on from that chunk.
I do not want an Omega spinoff because, especially if we're talking about one in which she is, we follow her after the end of this episode where she's all fighting the rebellion. That time period has been done to death. I don't need to see the rebellion anymore. Like we've covered that to death. So I don't want a spinoff of her, at least not in that time period. Like I don't want it to pick off where Bad Batch leaves.
Well, yeah. So here's the thing. Like I don't really want an Omega show. Like this, the Omega show, like a show called Omega, like Ahsoka. I don't want that. But if she is like a main character in another show, maybe taking place in the Mandalorian time period, so we don't do that. Like I'd be perfectly fine with that. In fact, there was a rumor, which is probably bullshit, but there was a rumor going around because there's this actress who was cast for Skeleton Crew who looks kind of like Omega. I was like, maybe that's Omega and she's going to be in Skeleton Crew.
Yeah. Which I would be fine with. I'm totally fine with Omega popping up on another show. I just don't want that. I actually kind of want that. I want to see what they do with her in live action. Yeah. I actually want to see it. But I don't want like a continuation of the end of Bad Batch where we see her all fighting the rebellion. We've already seen the rebellion like so much. We just knew we can get out of that. So I don't want that, but I would love to see a live action Omega in a Mandoverse show. Love it. I would be very happy. That might make Skeleton Crew worth watching because I have no interest in Skeleton Crew, but
yeah, I'd personally rather have them flesh out this kind of current Mando time period. I know the movies with Rey they're going to be doing all the way up, further on in the future, which seems distant enough where they can do their own things without necessarily overlapping too much. But yeah, as much as I love the whole rebellion period and all of that, I'd much rather just let's just find the now and explore forward from there, and then we could just be creative in that sense.
Yeah, I think there's a lot you do with the Mandoverse time period that I think it's a lot.
That's beyond the original trilogy, and so there's a big space in between that and the sequel trilogy.
Yeah.
You got a couple of decades where you can do almost anything.
Whereas pre A New Hope, we got Obi-Wan, we got Rebels, we got Rogue One, we got Andor. It's pretty much.
So let me ask you guys, what do you think about the Acolyte, which is now going back before Episode 1, going into the end of the High Republic era. What do you think of exploring that time period?
I think that's a good idea to explore. I'm interested, but I'm still know nothing about that, so I don't know what angle they're going to take with the show. So it's a more of wait and see what they do with it. But I'm on board with the idea of it.
I'm tentatively optimistic, and doesn't really have anything to do with the time period. Again, I think this is enough of a separation where you can start to tell a very different story that you don't have to bother about really tying into anything outside of like some distant lore, which is, I mean, Disney kind of has its own, particularities and what lore it wants to grab onto or not. To me, it's the thing is just, are they going to lean more Andor or are they leaning more Obi-Wan on this? And that's the only reason where I'm tentative on my optimism for it. Because if they lean more Andor, and I just mean kind of like a more concise, focused storyline, I'm going to be excited. If it becomes another live action cartoon like Obi-Wan felt like so many times, I'm just going to be less excited. So it depends on what tone they end up really pulling out of it.
Well, I would say Obi-Wan felt like it should have been a movie. It felt like a movie that they stretched out into 6 episodes.
Yeah. Oh, I would agree with that.
See, I would disagree that Andor was concise. I thought they should have cut out half.
Oh, yeah, no. I think Andor should have been cut in half. That was my main complaint of it.
I think
literally, there should have been 5 episodes.
I guess, yeah, tonality wise. Well, the thing is I think Andor is like 4 different little segments that are kind of linked together. I think the second season is going to be a little bit more tighter on that.
I hope so.
To me, the Andor was more excessive than the storylines is the characters. Like they had all of these unnecessary characters that should have just been chopped.
Yeah, like that stupid security guard guy.
Yeah, so I hate that guy. The guy who would sit there with his mother eating cereal blue.
Yeah, I was like, what's the point of that?
What's the point of this guy? Like.
But here's the thing. So I want to get back to the chat because it's sort of been neglecting them. But this ties into what we're talking about because Jordan Johnson says, do you think we should have a slice of life Star Wars TV show? And my answer to that, we already do. It's called Andor.
See, that's it. That's what I meant to say. Slice of life.
But I don't like slice of life. But yeah, no. In the review I did for Andor, I laid out how I think this whole season should have been chopped. Like they should have gotten all the first 3 episodes should have been the first half of the first episode, and then the heist storyline was amazing. Keep that. The prison storyline can go. That was a waste of time, and then focus on the ending. Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying it wasn't good, but it adds nothing to the story. It was just a big diversion. It's like, now he's in prison. Now he's
Mark. They were building the Death Star.
Oh, yeah. I've actually had people say that to me.
Okay, yeah, and this is one thing that I will agree with you guys on completely. I don't want to see one more damn thing about the Death Star, like ever again. Ever. It was great. It was awesome, but I don't need to find out how he chose the hat rack styles in the corner of the executive deck on the Death Star. I don't need to know that, man.
But Darren, you must divert all funding to Project Stardust.
Yeah.
And who is this person he's even talking to about that? He's like, I'm like the secretary, but yeah, sure, I'll get the Emperor on the line right now.
I actually like that line though because it did sort of explain that why they abandoned the necromancer thing.
I just wanted to go. Leave this for when Thrawn returns and finds its dusty remnants.
Yeah.
I think, I don't know. To me, it was just like implied, like, oh, this is where they switched the focus to the Death Star. Like they didn't need to say it. Like it was just a little it reminded me of like the Enterprise, the thing with the Borg was completely unnecessary. It was like, oh, it'll take about 200 years or so. Like you didn't need that in there. Like I just felt like it was maybe not as bad as that, but it's in that vein. Like it was not necessary. It was just like, it's the Death Star. Like, I would have just assumed that they switched the focus to the Death Star. It didn't need to be said.
See, no, I didn't mind that. I think that worked, but I did mind or wasn't impressed with the ending of Andor where they zoomed out. It's like, oh, they were building the Death Star.
Yeah,
And I was like, really? Like, who cares?
No, the Death Star. Everybody figured that out with the
Can't somebody make like the bit part of the big tail sections for the Star Destroyer? We see those all the time. That would be the next one that comes out, and it's just like a little panel plate in the back of a Star Destroyer. Nothing fancy.
Well, anyway, yeah, I did want to say hello to Tony saying happy 10th. Thank you so much. And Jordan saying the Young Jedi Adventures is kind of a slice of life. I never saw that. I didn't watch that. So now I know it's slice of life and they're not the bother. And then Steven was saying that he's glazing over because he doesn't watch Star Wars. So yeah, if and you're in the chat, you want to ask a question or bring up a different topic, go right ahead. I'll try to address it. But anyway, let me. One thing I wanted to mention, getting back to Star Trek. I recently watched this podcast where there was it was four people. One of them has seen Next Generation once before. The other three have not seen any Star Trek, and they started at the start of Next Generation and they're up to season 6. So they'd never seen the original series, and they watched the episode Relics with Scotty. And they hated that episode. Like they berated it, and they're like, well, I don't really, because I don't know who the fuck this guy is. It seems like the only reason anyone would like this episode is because they're like, oh, look, it's Scotty. And I'm like, yes, I couldn't agree more. Like, this is the only reason people would like the episode. So someone watching the show who don't know who Scotty is would notice how terrible of an episode that is. And they even pointed out, like, Scotty seems like an asshole. Like, I wouldn't want to see more of him. And I'm thinking, well, no, he's not. It's just in that episode they had the contrived bullshit of him being neglected, which is actually not how it would have played out. They actually would have been really excited to hear his stories, but they had to have a contrived story about him being neglected for being too old. It's just a bad episode. But anyway,
it's a very pandering episode. And I remember when it first aired, you're like, next week, Scotty. There's still little shots of him coming in and old James doing. And yeah, if you don't have any connection to the character, that's just like, let's make up. What reason would we have? We've already had an older Bones. Obviously, Spock is a Vulcan, so he can live it. Oh, now James, how do we get him? Because he's definitely dead at this point. How do we get him into the future?
Well, I recall when Next Generation started, I remember reading that Roddenberry wanted to distance himself from TOS.
Yes.
Other than just having, the one cameo of old McCoy for 5 seconds. He didn't want to bring back any other characters, and then eventually they were like, we'll bring back Sarek. And then and I think, didn't they originally want to actually bring back Leonard Nimoy at that point, and they couldn't get him, so they got Sarek or something like that?
I didn't hear that.
Yeah, I think when I was doing research with the
Yesterday's Enterprise.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because that's when Mora came in. That whole discussion was we want to bring Spock back, but it didn't really work. And then Sarek, the whole Sarek thing came out of that.
But the funny thing is in the episode Sarek, the writers had to fight to have him just say Spock's name. Like Rick Berman and Roddenberry was like, no, you're not allowed to even say his name. And the writers thought that was ridiculous and had to fight for it.
That son of mine that also served on an Enterprise.
And then they eventually like, okay, we're bringing Spock back, and then it's just the floodgates. Like, let's just come up with some contrived way to have Scotty on here now.
Well, the thing is that by season 6, Roddenberry had passed away.
Yeah, he passed away. So like his original like vision for like getting away from TOS went down the toilet, and now it's like, oh, let's bring Scotty back. Now let's just have this really contrived way to bring Kirk back in a movie, and it was and completely and in the process contradict a line that Scotty says in that episode too.
Yeah, that's true. But I did want to say hello to Rob in the chat, saying good job making it 10 years. Thanks so much. Good to see you. And Stephen Kennedy has zoned back in, apparently. Now he's switched back
right now. It looks like
But
magic.
actually, I want to go back to Star Wars for a second because we have a question from Jordan Johnson. Can Ahsoka be saved? Because I thought the last couple of episodes were really lacking. I think yes. The answer is yes. I think the last couple episodes weren't terrible. My main issue with them is that they left things too open ended for the season. I wanted the season. It could have not it could have left things open, but I wanted to resolve more, particularly with Balin's story. I thought that was what pissed me off. So yeah, in season 2, if they recast Balin, they can resurrect it. But if they just neglect the character and try to pretend like he didn't, he died off screen in between seasons, then that would be stupid and that would suck. So they better not do that.
Yeah, and I wouldn't go so far as to say Ahsoka needs to be saved. Like, I think it was fine. Like, I think that the ending didn't live up to the middle of the season. I think the middle of the season was some of the best Star Wars TV ever, but then the ending kind of was lacking for the reasons that Mark was talking about. But I wouldn't go so far that it needs to be saved. Like, I don't think it was bad. But can it be, can it bounce back? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I definitely think I agree with Mark. Like, they need to resolve Balin's storyline though, and they should have done it in that season.
But despite the ending, I still overall love that season.
Yeah.
I think I liked it more than most people.
Yeah, I really loved the season 2. Yeah, or season as also, I should say, because we don't know about season 2 yet. But
yeah.
Well, I think that's part of the weirdest. It's like I just don't know where any of these things are in the whole creative kind of like juice verse what they're doing here. I mean, I'm a little more mixed, I think, on Ahsoka. I think overall, I think that it was good, and I think that there's a lot more potential for it to go forward. I did felt it sort of meandered around a little bit for a while. It's like there's a lot of things that it was trying to do, but I don't know how much outside of getting Thrawn from there to here really happened. So, but maybe I have to rewatch it.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like, I think as particular, to me, the middle 2 episodes were the best, but I think it meanders a bit in the beginning. They hit on something really good, and then they kind of get away from it and meander again toward the end. So yeah, I think that the season overall could have used a little more focus, I think.
Yeah.
I liked it better. I liked the beginning. I thought the beginning was amazing. I thought the middle was amazing. It's just the end kind of botched. It wasn't terrible, but yeah. I think, but that Anakin episode, I'm sorry. It's not my nostalgia for Anakin. It's just that they made him better than he was in the prequels.
Way better.
And he was the Clone Wars Anakin. Seeing him live action was amazing. And it's not just it's Anakin. It's what they did with the story and how amazing the character story was for Ahsoka. I love that episode. That's like one of my favorite episodes of TV ever.
Yeah, I don't know if I could quite that far.
Yeah.
Definitely my favorite episode of Star Wars.
Yeah,
of Star Wars TV, at least of live action. Maybe I can make a case for a couple of Clone Wars episodes or Rebels episodes, but I think at least of live action, if not of all Star Wars TV, it would easily my favorite.
Oh, Jordan was saying, I hope they explore Jason's character more. I mean, yeah, they can. Like, he was doing that Force thing, which was cool. I love that they played the Force music. So yeah, they could. Yeah, I think that would be good to explore him more.
Yeah, I just hope that they do get a really good story that they can pursue. I mean, there's just, like I said, it feels weird because there's so much up in the air, and now we've got a Mandalorian and Grogu movie, and that's going to wrap things up, but we don't know if there's anything in between.
So here's the question: are they doing the Mandalorian and Grogu movie in lieu of a Mandalorian season 4? Is there still going to be a Mandalorian season 4? Or are they just going to do the movie instead?
Honestly, have no idea. Yeah, it felt like, because I mean, season 3 of Mandalorian felt very much like And we're wrapping this up, man. Disney will not make more than 3 seasons of any Star Wars now. No. So I don't really know. That's what I'm curious. Is it's like I haven't heard anything about Ahsoka season 2 or Mandalorian season
Now,
4.
I heard that Ahsoka season 2 is being worked on.
Okay, well then I missed that, and that's awesome. That makes me feel better.
It's at least in the
Pre-productions, yeah, pre-production, yeah.
They haven't started filming or anything like that.
No, that's not what I meant by worked on. I mean they're like working on this.
Yeah, it's in the production. Yeah. It's been greenlit. It's happening. Mando season 4, I haven't even heard if that's even happening or not, or if they're just going to do the movie instead.
Yeah. So I don't know. It feels like Disney is kind of doing a whole reshuffle on both the Marvel and Star Wars, and between what's going to do film and what's going to do streaming and what's going to be series. It feels like so.
You know what else? I mean, I kind of almost think Star Wars might, and I don't want to say this prematurely because I don't know how it's going to turn out, but Star Wars might want to consider the Star Trek model where I like this idea of the long tracks, which is the one-off movies that are going to be on TV and tie into the TV universe. We'll see how the Section 31 does, and then what other future long tracks they come up with. But I do like that idea. We'll see about the execution of it before I sing its praises too much. But I do kind of, because especially with Star Trek, because I think Star Trek is a TV first franchise.
Yeah.
Yes.
In my personal opinion, I know most people don't agree with me, but I think Star Trek has made 3 great films, good to great films. And which to me is Star Trek 2, and there's a disagreement probably for most people about Mark. Star Trek 3 is a pretty good film. Star Trek 4, because Star Trek 6 also. So Star Trek 2, 3, 4, and 6, and then you're done. Like, to me, like I don't like any of the Next Generation movies. I know there's a lot of disagreement because people like First Contact. I don't like any of them. I don't think any of them are good. I don't think any of them were necessary. I think they were all cash grabs. First Contact is the biggest cash grab ever made. Like, it's such an obvious cash grab, and then the whole J.J. Abrams, you know how I feel about that. I don't think any of those movies needed to exist. I think Star Trek is a TV centric show, or a franchise. So I love this idea of kind of doing these long track movies that are going to be aired on Paramount Plus, streamed on Paramount Plus, that tie into the TV universe. I like that idea. We'll see where it goes. But that maybe if that was a success, maybe Star Wars might realize they're a movie first franchise, but maybe that era is over. Like maybe.
Well, I think they've already come to that conclusion, because at first they were going to release a film every year, and after Solo bombed, they stopped doing that and focused more on the streaming services, which is why I think they switched Obi-Wan from a movie to a show, because they're like, well, our streaming services are doing better than the actual movies.
Didn't they announce these new movies, though? There's the Rey movie.
Yeah, they're going back to it now, but they had this long break.
So, but I wonder, like, maybe a Mandalorian and Grogu, like, long track type of thing where it's on Disney Plus, but it's a movie, and it's, I mean, are they expecting that to get a lot? I don't know how that would do in the theaters. Like, that's not going to necessarily play to, the average Star Wars fan or the casual Star Wars fan.
Yeah.
Casual fans who only, like, who was it in the chat? Was it Stephen Kennedy earlier said he only watches the movies?
Yes.
Like,
yeah.
Those people who like only watch, and I know a lot of people like that only watch the movies. Are they gonna want to see Mando and Grogu in the theater?
See, yeah, I think there was a lot of people who were on board with the Mandalorian and other streaming shows, but when they started tying back in to the larger lore of the cartoons of the Clone Wars, that's when they zoned out, because they're like, and I get this position, but they're like, I'm not going to watch freaking 10 seasons of a cartoon to understand what's going on currently.
Yeah, I actually stood on that hill for a while. Then eventually,
Yeah, so was I. But you're the one that convinced me actually to. Yeah.
Well, I just think the thing is the shows just have to be designed as if you haven't seen those, where those things become supplementary and informative, but aren't dependent upon. Because I think
Yeah.
in a way you got to kind of have to stick with just mediums. I mean, there's going to be some people that just watch the films, period. So they got to be able to go from film to film to film and understand those storylines. And if
Well,
they want to do
Solo.
TV, it should feed and expand upon that, but not replace.
Solo, a Star Wars story, already fucked that up because they had Darth Maul appear at the end. And I remember, I think I heard that he came back in the show, but I think Alyssa, you were like, what the fuck is Darth Maul's being alive? What is he doing here?
Look, that was definitely, I think, a poor choice to do because, yeah, you're like, what the hell? Or if you hadn't seen any of the stuff, you're like, this guy's alive. Either it's who is this guy or this guy's alive. And I think you could sort of see that he has robot legs, but not really,
I did not notice the robot
But
legs.
he's got to do the double-bladed lightsaber. So you're like, no, that is Darth Maul, and not just a guy with somebody that has similar makeup. So yeah, it's like Easter egg or unnecessary kind of
that was
addition.
too far, I think.
I wouldn't disagree with you on that, especially since and where's Darth Maul now? Did we hear anything more? No, that didn't do anything, did it? Meant absolutely nothing with a larger story. Okay.
All right, so I did in the chat. Jordan Johnson saying the J.J. Abrams movies did make a lot of money. Yeah, so did the Michael Bay Transformer movies.
That was kind of my the whole purpose of them was to make money.
Yeah,
that they're not.
No, I agree with you 100% on J.J. Abrams movies. I think especially the first one was nothing but a shameless cash grab, and I can't believe tons of not just Star Trek fans, but critics and movie critics saying, oh, it's such a great movie, 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10. I'm like, it's a shit movie. The whole script is a mess. The character stories are all over the fucking place, and they're having shameless cameos and CGI diarrhea. It's just one of the worst films.
And the product placement.
Yes. Oh my God, I forgot about the product placement. Jesus Christ.
Which is just, yeah. It is
that Budweiser truck right in the middle of Federation headquarters was just out of place.
Yeah, I want to get back. I have to bring this back to long treks because I've been wanting to say this, and I think I want to say, Mark, you may have also said this. You did this video where you laid out what you want the Star Trek franchise to do, not what you think it's going to do.
Yes.
Well, correct me if you also said this or not, but I really want the next long track to be the Temporal Wars. That's what I
think I did say that.
I think I want a long track about this. I don't think you can make a show about it, but I like a movie about the Temporal Wars. I would love. I would really want that.
Now that Discovery is referencing it again and making it more of a thing,
and that's what made me think of it. It was,
and they can reveal who Future Guy is, and it's definitely not Archer.
I don't know. It's canon that it was Archer, but it was the plan.
It was the plan, but it was never revealed. It's not canon.
Okay, I have a question then for future Trek. If we want to go in that direction, where do you think Trek should go next? In the sense that you have the main timeline that latest has been the Picard era. You've got the Discovery timeline, which has them in the far future, which I don't really care about, but that does give you a reimagined Pike era, Enterprise era. Or do you think where do you think that it should go? Or do you think it should go all the way up and follow Discovery? Should we put all that in the past? Where do you think? Because the one thing that kind of annoys me, and I know that there's production and licensing and copyright weird shit with its why these are all strange. But where do you think that we should go to just take Trek forward? Because the multiple era shit to me is kind of annoying. It's just like pick one and go.
I disagree. I like the multiple.
Agree as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's good to
I wasn't-
explore all the different facets of, and one thing that
They get together the way that they're doing, you know.
Yeah. So one thing that I pitched, and I mentioned this actually, something that I wanted ever since Voyager ended, and I pitched this again in the video Alyssa was referencing, where I say what I want Star Trek to do is they should do an anthology show where every episode they go to a different species, a different character, a different time period. That would be amazing. That's what I want.
Because they can do so much with that.
Yeah, they could explore so much of the universe.
And then if you hit on one that's like, boom, like it just.
Then you can make a spin-off of it.
Yeah, but
they got to rebuild all new sets for every episode. That's very expensive.
Yeah.
I mean,
But
honestly, that would be my only kind of like production.
But Darren,
wrench.
I think building new sets would not be as expensive as all the money they're spending on like visual effects and landscapes and all the other stuff.
They can repurpose sets. Like you can have a smaller ship, and then you can like turn it into a Klingon ship. Like you've done it before. Like
I mean, honestly, I'm fine with that. That was kind of the fun thing about the older styles of stuff, is things were a lot more like mobile. Like, okay, move this over here, turn it 90 degrees, and paint it green. Okay, now it's Romulan.
Yeah, exactly.
But
But I do like what Rob says. It's actually a good point. You could get some great writers, directors with different tones and visions. And I think they have been doing this. That's why I like the different shows, because Lower Decks is a very different tone to Prodigy, which is a very, very different tone to Strange New Worlds, which is a different tone to Discovery. And that's why I'm a bit skeptical about the Starfleet Academy show, because I don't want it to be Discovery Light. I don't want it to be the exact same thing in Discovery, but with new characters.
Yeah, see, I think the Starfleet Academy show is really going to depend on the writing and the casting, the acting, the direct. It's going to, like, I personally think that it has the potential to be good if they do it right. I mentioned this in my written review of Discovery. I like this idea. They're kind of setting up this Starfleet Academy that doesn't have all this prestige the way that we're used to it in the 24th century. That it's kind of the Federation, the Starfleet is struggling maybe a little bit in the 32nd century still after post-burn. And like people are like thinking, yeah, I'll just go join a cargo ship instead of going to Starfleet, which just would never happen in the 24th century. So that is a concept that I think, if they develop it, if they write it well, I think could actually be interesting. I love that Tawny Newsome is on the writing staff.
Yes.
Yeah, so I do think that it has a potential to surprise people who are poo-pooing it. I think it's all about the writing and the acting and the directing.
Well, yeah,
it has the potential to be as bad as you might think it would be. Like it has the potential.
Well, see, I'm actually reserving judgment because of those things until I see it. I'm not going to prejudge it. Like it could be amazing, it could suck. I don't really know at this point.
It's still not the concept I personally would choose for the but it's what we have.
So. I actually think what Alex Kurtzman, I know a lot of people like to shit all over him, but I'm sorry. I would take Alex Kurtzman over Rick Berman. I'm sorry, but I would. But anyway, but because of what I think Alex Kurtzman's plan is actually really smart, is that every Star Trek show appeals to a different audience. Like you appeals to the comedy adults, appeals to the kids, the one appeals to classic Trek fans like episodic, one appeals to more modern audience like serialized. And I think that's smart, and I think that's what he needs to continue doing, and I think they will. And that's the problem with 90s Trek. As much as I like it, Voyager was just a carbon copy of TNG, and that's what turned a lot of people off. I think it's smart to try to each show actually be very distinct. And
Starfleet Academy is supposed to build as kind of a young adult show, which I think turns a lot of people off. But I think YA can be good when written well, in my opinion. So I think even if it's the young adult show, I think that doesn't necessarily mean that it's not going to be good.
I think they just need to give it a twist and make it like Gen V. It's Gen F, So it's like it's Star Trek Academy, but there's a lot of swearing and people blowing up.
Well, see, then all the Trekkies would lose their shit. They would be like, "This isn't Star Trek. You can't have people blowing up and swearing." Like,
I don't care about the swearing, but the blowing up like they do in The Boys, I would not. That would not.
no, yeah, not. I gave up on The Boys. That's another topic. But
Also, I do want to give just quick kudos to Stephen Kennedy, who is
Yeah.
perfectly correct. The future guy is Sam Beckett.
oh
Everybody.
yes, absolutely.
Perfect.
Leaped into.
He's gonna stop this leaping if he's got to do a whole temporal war.
So, let's see. Yeah, there was something in the chat. Yeah, so Stephen Kennedy said, I want Star Trek to do what I wanted to do is have 5 seasons and each season focus on the main races of Trek. I mean, I'm kind of thinking of like, what's the American Horror Story or whatever, where it's an anthology show, but it's not every episode that's different, it's every season. So they have one season where they focus on one place, but then the next season does a totally different thing. That could work too. I think I would prefer the more anthology episodic one because then you can do a lot more. But it would save them on sets.
Well, I mean, whatever's going to allow them to make like the kind of the tightest storyline. That's a nice thing about anthologies. You've got one bit to do a thing, and it tends to really focus on that, whatever that focus and story is. Sometimes when you get multiple episodes, then stuff starts to drag, and I think that would be I think that would work against the anthology idea.
So I want to address Jordan Johnson's question, but first I want to ask Darren: are you watching Discovery currently?
I'm like 2 episodes, but I think I'm like 2 episodes.
But you're still
behind.
watching season 5.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Because Jordan asked, having sat through all of Picard, should I give Discovery one more chance? I stopped twice already, and I'm really trying here. Well, I'm curious, what was the last you saw? When did you stop watching Discovery? Because it's hard. I don't know. It's hard for me to say because I think and you need to watch season 3 because that tells you that's when they jump to a totally different century. But I wasn't a fan of season 3. It's actually might be my least favorite season of the show because they bungled the whole Burn storyline so badly. But you need that as required viewing because season 4 and 5 I think are the best seasons of the show. I think it did get better towards the end. Well, season 5 is not done yet, so I can't speak too soon. But so far, it's good.
So far, yeah.
Around the middle of season 2. Actually, I just recently rewatched Discovery season 2 because I got on a whole Pike thing, and Strange New Worlds is going to be a while, so I had to get my fix. And there's a lot in that, but Jordan, honestly, it depends on why you stop, because I do have to stay. One of the reasons I am a little behind on Discovery is, as much as I want to watch it, I do realize every time I put it on why it's so hard for me, because they draw out their emotional stuff so much. It's ponderous to the point of some of the times of dialogue and moments where they're just like sitting and basking in their emotional turmoil, and I'm like, man, I can't. Again, I don't want to say yes. Okay, Jordan. Yeah, that's exactly it. In fact, there's a point towards the end of season 2 which has one of the most blatant forms of that just hurts me when I think about it.
Are you talking about the finale when Burnham's saying goodbye to Spock and they're in the middle of the fucking battle?
Just like the place is going to blow. No, we need 20 minutes to talk about the emotional feelings that we're going through right now.
But what I will say, though, because I totally agree with you, which I'm not sure Alyssa does, but what I will say, though, is I think the show did get better. I think it's still a problem, but not as big of a problem. I think it's not as bad in the season 4 or 5.
Well, I mean, honestly, that's my thing is the show is really well done. the cast is putting it all out there. There's a lot of great stuff that is happening here. It's just, to me, that's like a constant like slamming stop sign when I get into stuff like, oh God, I almost want to fast forward. Is there something important that actually gets said in this? Can we move on to what's happening next? Which when you watch other shows, that's like what would be the scene turns into 5 minutes of dialogue. And so that's the only thing that draws me back to Discovery. But I have to admit, I mean, it's beautifully done, and there's a lot of love and skill and craft that goes into the show. Yeah.
So Alyssa, but I want your opinion on this.
No, I see why people see it that way, but I don't. Like I can see, like, I understand when it's not an opinion like I totally, think is off the mark and like, no, you're completely wrong. And like I can look at it and say, yeah, I see how people would interpret it that way. I don't. I just, I think that Sonequa Martin's Green's acting is very much like, oh, but Saru, like that's just her acting, and like I wouldn't say never, but very rarely feel like the dialogue goes on for too long. I understand why people wouldn't. I understand what you're saying about the Spock thing. It is a little ridiculous, like the world is ending and like they need to get moving, and they're sitting there talking, but like doesn't bother me that much. Like I actually kind of like it. I don't know. I think it's, sure. I kind of like the connection that those characters are making, even though, yes, in the context, it's a little ridiculous that they're stopping to have this conversation in that moment. But if they were to have that conversation at another time, I wouldn't mind it at all. I would actually really like it. But I see why that really bothers people. It just doesn't really bother me.
But Alyssa, what would be your advice to Jordan Johnson, who was bothered by that? Would you suggest that he should give Discovery another shot?
Well, I can't because I disagree with that concept. So if then I can't, like, I have a different opinion of it, so I can't like really give advice.
Fair enough.
That just doesn't bother me. So as you guys more of a place to give him advice because you agree with that. So for me, like I just disagree with the premise, so I don't really know what to tell you. I'm like, okay, I guess maybe I would just say, well, maybe it's not for you then. Like,
here's my advice, Jordan. I would say give it another shot, but realize that you're going to have to power through season 3. Don't expect much from it, but then I think it does get better in season 4 and 5. I mean, season 3 is not a terrible season.
There's good stuff in season 3.
Some good stuff in
season 2 is very up and down. Like season 2 has some great stuff and then some just not great stuff. My biggest issue with Discovery prior to season 5, and this includes season 4, which I found to be the best season so far before season 5 is finished.
Yeah, I can't do it.
My biggest problem with Discovery is that the seasons are too long. There's too much filler, too much unnecessary storylines. Whereas season 5, they're doing bottle episodes that still tie into the greater story arc.
And they're interesting bottle episodes. They're not filler.
Yeah, they're not filler. They're bottle episodes that tie into the overall serialized story and that are interesting. And that's the way they should have done it. Or I think... Yeah, and each of the previous seasons, I could probably think of at least 3 episodes that should have just been chopped out.
The other thing you didn't mention, I would say, that set season 5 apart from the other seasons is the whole mystery box format.
Yeah,
like that it kind of worked in season 4, but that's pretty much the only season it did work for. Like they really fumbled the mystery box, especially season 3. I think that was the biggest fault.
Because to me, season 4, the mystery box of it all is not what made it good to me.
Yes, yeah.
The mystery like didn't like ruin it the way it did in season 3. Also, season 2, I remember being. Really, I remember at one point saying that if Michael Burnham was the Red Angel, I was going to bring the show. But when that happened, I was like, okay, maybe I was exaggerating. I'm not going to do the show, but I did not want that to be this is spoilers for season 2 of Discovery. Jordan Johnson might not be finished watching it, but yeah. I did not want that to be the resolution, and it was really disappointing. And then season 3, obviously the burn, not a great answer to the mystery box. Season 4, I felt like the mystery box was a little less, it was a little more subtle. It was a little less point of the season. Whereas season 5, the only mystery box was in the first episode, and then it was answered. It was solved with the answer. That was very satisfying in one episode, and now we're not doing a mystery box anymore. And then that's not to say that we're not learning new things and making new revelations, but it's not about this one great mystery that we have to figure out.
Yeah, well, the mystery box in season 4, I think, was actually there was one, but as you say, it wasn't like promise. It was more of where's the D main, what is the D main, who created it, and where did it come from? And I think the answer to that was extremely satisfying because it was a unique. Oh, I'm spoiling it. Sorry, but I'll just say that.
And it wasn't like
very satisfying.
I don't know, but I didn't feel like the whole season hinged on that answer. Like, I think it was good because the answer didn't suck as it did in the previous seasons. But like then the reasons why I would cite for liking season 4 is not the mystery box was good. Like there's much more to it than that for me.
But I want to answer Jordan Johnson's question: is Discovery better than Picard? And I'll get both of your opinions on that. But my opinion is a clear yes. I think Discovery is clearly better than Picard because Picard season 1 was a mixed bag, much like a lot of earlier seasons of Discovery. But then season 2 was a complete shit show, and then season 3 was also a mixed bag. So I think Discovery has a better track record than Picard.
Yeah, I think Discovery is hands down far and beyond better than Picard. I think Breaking the Modern Track. I had Prodigy last just because I was less impressed with that season than everyone else. But Prodigy has a lot of potential, and it's not finished yet. So I kind of want to put Prodigy aside and say that Picard is clearly the worst of the modern track, in my opinion, because it's finished. It's done. We've got Discovery finishing up this season. Lower Decks sadly, apparently finishing up, I guess. Strange New Worlds has been incredible, in my opinion. So that leaves Picard, to me, as far and away the worst in modern track. It's finished its run. It's done what it's going to do. And so to me, Discovery is, I would put it far above Picard, honestly, if I'm being perfectly honest with you.
There was more than one season of Picard. I think you guys had fever dreams. I think it's some collective Mandela effect fever dreams. There was just that one, like, farewell to the old cast season, which, Amanda Plummer was awesome in that. I thought she was great. But
there's a lot of good stuff in season 3. It's just, I thought overall is fine.
Well, see, I think of season 3 of Picard the same way I think of season 2 of Discovery. There's some awesome stuff and there's some terrible stuff. And I think because Stephen Kennedy in the chat was saying that Picard season 3 was good up until the last 2 episodes, which were crap. And I agree. Those last 2 episodes are 2 of the worst episodes of the franchise, in my opinion. But I don't think the season was good up to that, or all good up to that point. I think it was mixed. I think there's some awesome stuff. There was some shitty stuff, just like Discovery season 2.
Yeah, I mean, look, the best thing out of Discovery season 2 was Strange New Worlds. I'm just going to commit to that statement. And honestly, while I think season 3 of Picard was fine, honestly, the best thing out of that was the idea of the follow-up Star Trek series with 7 of 9 captaining the New Enterprise, which I would freaking love to see. But Star Trek Legacy is what all the fans are throwing that out. And I think that would be a really interesting kind of potential show.
See, here's the thing about, I just want to say real quick. Here's the thing about Legacy is I love the idea of continuing on the Picard timeline, and I want them to do that, but I don't trust Terry Matalas as a showrunner. I just don't.
That's fair. That's fair.
Someone else could pick it up. I mean, it doesn't have to.
Yeah.
They're gonna bring back Ronald D. Moore. No. He's doing
That
For
would
All
be
Mankind.
great, though.
I mean, I would be all about it.
Yeah.
But
stop doing For All Mankind and come back and do this.
It took me a while to get into it, but I really freaking like For All Mankind.
I've never seen it, so I can't say.
Yeah, I've never seen it
because I refuse to watch get Apple Plus.
And also a completely understandable. There's like 5 shows on Apple that are good, and everything else is like
I had
never look at it.
I had it for 1 week to watch Severance, which was amazing, and then
Yes.
that the whole streaming service sucked. There was hardly anything on it. It was a waste of time. Like, why would anyone get this? And so I'm gonna get it again when Severance season 2 comes out. So I might watch other shows while I have it, but then I'm getting.
I can give you a list of stuff that's actually good to check out. But no, if you're ever going to churn through a service, Apple's the one to do it, because there's like 5 or 7 shows that are really good on that and nothing else. And it doesn't come out. They don't have enough new stuff to really make it worthwhile to hold on to.
I still haven't seen Severance. Everyone says it's great, and I like the concept of it. So I do at one point before season 2 comes out, I will have to get Apple Plus to watch season 1 because I really do want to see the show. And the main reason I've never seen it is because I've never gotten Apple Plus.
Just fair.
So,
again, because there's only 7 shows on.
So I do want to eventually watch Severance season 1, so then I can watch season 2 because I'm definitely interested in it.
So I wanted to go back to Stephen Kennedy asked the question to you, Darren, but we were busy talking about Discovery. But it was, Darren, are you watching the Walking Dead spinoff? If so, is it better than the last 2 seasons of The Walking Dead? They were awful seasons.
Look, Walking Dead's heyday was awesome, and it was a while ago. I did actually watch the first episode of The Ones Who Live, which is the Rick and Michonne, coming back. It was nice to see the characters. I was less impressed by how it was brought together. I just literally haven't been in the space to throw it back on and throw on the few episodes. Maybe that says it right there. I did watch 2 of the other spinoffs, the City of the Dead, or whatever, the one that had Maggie and Negan together, and then I watched a little bit. I
didn't even know all these existed.
The Daryl Dixon one, and honestly, those were both awful, and the production value I thought was really lacking, which may have soured me to the current one. So I can't really say too much about it. While it's nice to see Rick and Michonne back, I also feel at this stage I'm kind of like, yeah, but who cares, right? So I don't know. I feel bad even thinking about that. So in the future, if I catch it again, I'll throw it out at one of the times where I jump up on here.
I think the switch to the topic of The Walking Dead is good as any of a point for me to exit, because I didn't have a chance to eat before this, so I'm hungry, and I need to find a good place to leave at the conversation. But then we keep talking about things I'm interested in talking about, so now is the time for me to probably get out of here and let the 2 of you finish this out.
Now's the time when Sprockets will be dance. Fair enough. All right.
Thanks for having me. This was a lot of fun. I will, if you guys are going to keep talking, I'll go ahead and put you on my TV as I'm making maybe I'll chime in the chat every once in a while if I have something to add. But it was a really fun to be here, and happy 10th anniversary.
Yes, thank you, and thank you for stopping by.
Yeah. Well,
good seeing you, Alyssa.
Yeah.
So I did want to say, Allison in the chat said I enjoyed Silo on Apple. Did you see that, Dan?
Yes, Silo was really good.
Yeah.
I would definitely do that. For All Mankind was good.
I'm going to be honest, because I watched a couple of videos on For All Mankind, and I'm really not interested in it. I don't think I'm going to watch it.
It took me 3 attempts to get through the first episode and start to push through it. There was a lot that I wasn't. It was only kind of once it started going and I made a connection. Well, especially I think once we got past season 1 and there was more stuff happening, it really kind of pulled me in. But I completely understand the hesitancy of diving into it. Like I said, I kind of had to really push through the first bit of that a couple of times before I was able to finish watching it.
Yeah, I don't know. It's because I just don't like the. Because all right, here's my question: does it take place in the '60s, or does it start in the '60s and go later?
It jumps about a decade every season.
Oh, okay.
So it basically, the premise, and I'm not spoiling anything because it's the first freaking episode, is it basically presumes that what if Russia landed on the moon before we did?
Yeah, I heard that. I heard that premise.
And what that does is, while that inspires America to now, we've got to be number one in the next thing.
Yeah.
It spurs a bigger kind of space race where now you're getting.
So they're more. By the time we get to more present days, we're a lot more advanced and in space and shit.
Oh yeah, like we're in Mars by just after 2000s and stuff like that. Is it really?
I mean, that's an interesting concept, but I don't know. I'm just not really into these astronaut type shows, and I've heard. I can't remember who it was. It might have been Jesse Gender. They did like an analysis on it and saying how it was actually like kind of pro capitalism and pro God, what the hell's that Amazon guy's name?
Bezos.
Bezos, yeah, it's kind of pro that.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely bits where you bring in, a privatized funding and how that's going to be, and the problems with governments and stuff like that. I think it does make it very American, for sure.
Yeah.
And it's like, but I think there's enough kind of interesting characters and sub stories that really kind of make it interesting, and like, how would this happen, and why would this? And of course, ultimately, it's like, no matter where we go, we're still humanity doing the same shit.
But I'd definitely check out Silo, and I was thinking of checking out Foundation. Did you watch that?
Foundation, again, also took me 1 or 2 pushes to go in, and then I ended up really kind of enjoying that. So yeah, I mean, that's what I said. Invasion, again, a little bit of a push, but I ended up really liking it. I think I liked the first season better than the second one. There was a little more interesting kind of stuff, but yeah, but there's like, again, there's tons of other stuff that's on there that I have absolutely zero interest in watching.
Yeah, I remember when I had watched this animated film that was like very artsy and it had Idris Elba, like I think you're doing a voice of a tiger or something.
Mm-hmm.
It reminded me of like a Winnie the Pooh type thing.
Yeah, and his series Hijack is on that, which is, it's fun watching Idris Elba, but about halfway through you're kind of like, all right, so where are they going to go with this? And then it ends pretty much as you expect it to. So it's like one of those where it's like someone was like, we got this great concept. You're like, awesome. And then we don't really know what to do with it, but we got this great concept.
All right. So this leads me to a question I had in my notes I was going to ask, but we didn't get to ask while Alyssa is still here, but that's okay. Can I ask you, because I was thinking about this a lot, because I used to talk a lot about how the 2010s was the golden age of television, because you had Game of Thrones, you had Netflix coming out with all these great like shows, streaming shows, Stranger Things, all these things. I heard someone say that they thought that the golden age of television started in the early 2000s with Sopranos and ended around the 2010s with Breaking Bad. I'm like, no, that's not right at all. The golden age of television started with Breaking Bad and went further with Game of Thrones and all these other things in the 2000s. But my question is, do you think the golden age of television is dead? It's over now. And now we're kind of going down the slope and we're not getting as many good shows as we used to, because I feel that way. I feel this is partly due to the streaming wars, and then Netflix and other streaming services realize that they can make more money by making cheap shit reality shows and shit, and neglecting or canceling like good shows after 1 or 2 seasons.
Short answer, yes. And no, I agree. Golden Age of Golden Age of television really did start in the 2010s. It was with the Breaking Bads. It was with your Game of Thrones really started. Um, the early 2000s was the beginning of prestige television with The
Yeah.
Sopranos, where you could start to see, and there started to be the little fights and stuff of like who could put the new cool show on.
Well, yeah,
But it didn't,
24 and Lost, and yeah.
yeah, but it didn't hit its heyday, I don't think, until you really started getting the high budget, high quality prestige shows. Black Sails,
Oh,
I'm actually in the middle of my rewatch right now, which is on Netflix.
yeah.
Phenomenal. The production quality on that is astounding. And no, you don't see a lot of this. I think with the ending of cable and the move to streaming, I think some of the higher, your Showtimes or HBOs or those kind of like higher quality channels have all been bought up and integrated into now the larger streaming packages.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't even think of HBO, how that's been ruined by the takeover where he's
Oh yeah.
canceling good shows.
And look, one, you drop the HBO name and you keep Max, okay? That's like Elon Musk dropping Twitter to pick up X. It's like all of your brand recognition you just poop out the window.
Yeah.
What the heck for an inferior name, personally. Um, but I think with that, and then there's also now we've got to cut costs because we're not getting the same advertiser revenue unless they cheap you into getting one of those ad-supported tiers of their streaming service. So yeah, I think we're going to be in a kind of a bit of a there'll be some nice stuff, but I think we're in a complete resettling where you have to really actually see how the entertainment business is going to flow out, because there's still big movies being made and some do really well, but the box office is not anywhere near the same that it was pre-COVID. And
Yeah.
I think now with the changing television, it's like you only have a few stations now or streaming services, and they have to do all something nice, but they're also like, yeah, but where are you going to go? What is your competition? We've bought most of it, So I
Well,
mean, I don't know. I think there'll still be one or two or three kind of premium signature series per service, but I don't think we're going to see the same kind of like, a bastion of multiple shows, the same as we had before.
I hope that it gets better again. I hope that they start to consolidate. I think part of the problem is there's too many competing streaming services that are not making any profit, and it's just not a feasible model to have that many streaming services competing with each other.
No, when you could run one channel that like rented out movies and licensed movies to have, and then did a couple of its own big shows, and you were able to charge a premium price for that, supplementing on top of your regular cable revenue, I think that worked very well. I think now, since they bought everything and tried to shove it all together, they're like, great, so where does the money come from?
Yeah.
We have to keep up, and you can't keep upping all the prices, because then people will just start getting you for 1 month and dropping you for 6,
Yes.
so they can watch their favorite show. And that's not, otherwise they're going to be able to say, okay, sorry, all commitments are for 6 months or a year. You can't just sign up for a month.
So, I just want to address the chat real quick. Brandon was saying Foundation. I tried, too far removed for the books for me. Yeah, I haven't read the books, so that part wouldn't bother me. And I started to read the books once, and I just found them boring and couldn't finish it, but I heard they're good. And Allison's saying, not a big fan of Godzilla, pun intended, but I also enjoyed the Monarch show on Apple, which is based on modern era of Godzilla films. Yeah, I don't think I'd watch that.
That's look, I love Kurt Russell. Wyatt is not Kurt. I mean, Wyatt's great for his own type of stuff, but when you're doing young version of Kurt Russell and modern era Kurt Russell, it's like, oh, look, there's charisma and there's not.
Oh, so they're both in that show?
Yeah, Wyatt Russell is playing the younger version of Kurt Russell's character in the modern time. So they do flashbacks. I mean, it's a great way to cast, but look, man, there is just a Wyatt is not Kurt. That's all I'm gonna say. Honestly, I wanted to enjoy the Monarch show a lot more than I did. Uh, I have a lot of issues with that, but I'm
Oh,
glad other people enjoyed it.
so also Steven in the chat is saying another reason is a certain section of YouTubers are hating on everything over the last few years. See, we've always had those people, like back to all the protests and Reddit letter writing contains of people protesting Next Generation, saying how dare you, Kirk and Spock isn't in this isn't my Star Trek. So we always had these toxic fans have always been around. They're just have more of a voice now, and they have more impact. And yeah, I do believe that's also a problem with the modern era.
Yeah, well, just don't watch all those YouTube channels, and that
But the
really
problem
saves
is,
you
but
a
here's the
lot.
problem is that I don't think that's a solution because
No,
they
it's
have such huge followings that they make an impact on the show. So the people involved in making the show, involved in the streaming service, listen to them. In fact, Terry Metalis went and did interviews on some of these like new Trek haters, like fuck this woke shit. And I'm like, why are you on their channels? Why are you legitimizing them? You shouldn't even be legitimizing them, but they feel that they have to since they have such huge following. They have like millions of followers.
I mean, yes, I understand that. On the other hand, Alex Jones got a lot of followers too, but I ain't listening to him. I mean,
Yeah, but he still has it.
there are
It's not
choices
so
of
much
what you
as,
can support or not,
but it's
and
not so much of what you listen to; it's the impact that they have on the culture. Because, like Alex Jones, I can ignore the fuck out of him, but he still has an impact on the culture.
sure, and that's where, I mean, that is the power of a producer right there, is where do you let your influence come in? And I'm not saying that it's not important to kind of understand when you're doing a show, what do fans expect out of this? What are their expectations? What do they want out of it? But you can't let that guide and lord over the creative expression, the writing, the character development and such. um, Otherwise you're basically doing a choose your own adventure book, live for television, and that's not going to be fun,
Yeah,
because you'll have 100 different fans and they all have an entirely different idea of what the best episode is, or what the best storyline is, or what characters are important and that you've got to follow. uh, and the loudest ones are always like anytime, and I don't care what trouble I get into, anytime somebody uses the term woke these days, they're using it wrong. They're
yes.
probably not the person you should listen to, and they're using it wrong.
As soon as I hear a critic or commenter or YouTuber say the word woke, I'm out. I'm like, all right, you just erased, especially like in a negative way, like, oh, this is too woke. They lost me. I'm out.
Yeah.
You just lost all credibility in my eyes.
One of the reasons I'm a Star Trek fan is because I'm kind of a purist leftist. I'm a progressive. I believe in a better future where everybody can kind of come together, and I
Well,
don't like people that see that and think that's
the
dumb.
the thing is, people complaining about wokeness and franchises like Star Wars or Marvel and other stuff is annoying, and I hate them. But the ones complaining about Star Trek being woke, I just find
Oh
hilarious.
yeah, like what have you been
Because
watching?
Star Trek is already it's the wokest show you could possibly have. It's very conceptual. But here's the thing, people, and this is the misunderstanding I think people have, because they look at the original series and say, oh, they were kind of treating women like shit and doing this other thing, and they weren't promoting gay people, so they weren't woke. But no, you got to look at it at the time period it came out. It was super woke. You got to look at each show relative to the time period it was released, like Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, very woke, like having a black starship captain and focus on a black family. That was actually very not very common for the 90s, where now it is common. But so they were super woke for the time in which they were released. And they had that episode of Next Generation where Data creates a daughter and lets her choose her own gender
Yeah.
back in the early 90s.
Well, I mean, what original series had the big, the first trans, interracial kiss on television,
Yes.
which kind of cheated because they turned it out of the way, but whatever. It still legitimately has that. And yeah, TNG has choosing your own race. There's the whole trans episode where Riker falls in love with the one kid and like is giving up Starfleet and is doing like through the jungle assaults to try and save this person. You've got it's where the culture is at the time, and it always has been pushing the culture from where it's at. And I think that's something that is kind of what Star Trek is.
Yeah.
And if you just see it, the adventures of the Space Navy, I get that. That's also cool. But these
they're just
things
ignoring
also,
like the main foundation of the show.
yeah, it's like, yeah, but saying that's like, oh man, whenever Star Trek got woke, I'm out of here. It's like, I don't know what you've been watching all of this time. I will not kill today.
No, it was funny because when someone on Fox News was talking about Star Wars being too woke or MCU or something being too woke, and they're like, "That's why I'm a Star Trek fan," and then everyone was like berating her, and they went crazy, and they were like, "Oh no, there was something else though. There was another time when Fox News was complaining about Star Trek being too woke, and I saw this meme that said Fox News complaining about Star Trek taking place in space."
Yeah, just it, but people get out of shows what they want, and that's fine. That's all understandable. But
I think there's an argument to be made. Just because you're conservative or not woke doesn't mean you can't like Star Trek. But
oh no, that's the thing. I think it does have a lot to
Yeah.
appeal for a
Yeah.
grand source of people. But to deny that this has been part of its DNA since the beginning is just it. I mean, that's just being pedantic at that point. You're just not
Yes.
paying attention.
Yeah, exactly. So Brandon's saying, watch Chaos on the Bridge, people. If you've not done it, it's on Tubi. I've seen it twice, maybe 3 times. So have you heard of that, Darren?
No.
It's a documentary narrated by William Shatner about all the chaos during the first 2 seasons of Next Generation. Or the first 3 seasons, really, covers.
Okay.
And it's very interesting because there was a lot of like political going ons. Like, I don't know if you heard, Roddenberry had a lawyer who was going around like illegally changing people's scripts and doing a lot of shady shit.
Oh, I know there was a lot of drama the first couple of seasons of stuff, but no, I haven't gotten into too much of it. So that might be an interesting watch then.
Yeah, that was really good. There also was a documentary is on Amazon at the moment called The Center Seat. It's a series, so each show focuses on a different aspect of Star Trek. They go from the original series to Enterprise, and I thought that was really interesting too.
Right on. I'm going to build my break room into a giant Enterprise bridge.
And I just answered Stephen Kennedy's section. Of course, you just asked me about Center Seat, so there we go. All right, so before we go, we'll probably wrap things up soon, but I wanted to ask you about my top 50 movies video released and what you thought of it. Like, don't be shy. Like if you disagreed with anything or
no, I thought you had a really good solid list. I mean, I think you gave a lot of reasons. I do like how like on sometimes you're like, see the director's cut, not the original theatricals. Yeah. The other one are like, screw the director's cut, the theatrical is the only one that really exists. And yeah, like with Donnie Darko, I have to completely agree. It's like the director's cut that gives you more info, it's kind of too much. You're kind of like, I mean, okay, I get it. It makes sense, but you feel like you sort of lose the magic that kind of comes with like, that.
You're required to read. So you have to like, the thing flashes up on the screen, the text, and you have to pause the freaking DVD and read what it says. Like, that's bullshit.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I really hated about the director's cut was they changed the music. And apparently it's because they couldn't get the rights again for the same music they use in the theatrical version. And that drove me fucking nuts. I hated their musical choices in the director's cut.
Oh, see, that's like, I mean, the music is part of what makes that cut of Donnie Darko.
Yes.
I mean, that, of course, Sparkle Magic. It's all
Yeah,
about sparkle.
yeah. Sparkle motion. That's
Sparkle
what
motion. You know, that's the Mandela effect here, is because at my house we all say it's sparkle magic, and we know it's sparkle motion, but we've said it wrong too many times, and now it's our trademark free. But you know what we're talking about reference. We're the what is it? It's like the cheap knockoff that you find downtown in the old bodegas and stuff. It's not, you know, super. It's not Super Friends. It's Super Best Guys.
yeah.
Bat Dude and
Yeah.
Super Flyer. Yeah. But no, I think that was great. On the other hand, Aliens, slightly disagreement. I think the theatrical cut is better than the special edition.
Oh, we're gonna have fighting words.
No. I totally get, because there is a lot of info and backstory and stuff that you get in the special edition, which I think really does feed into like Ripley's character and so on. But having watched both of them kind of there, the theatrical is such a tight storyline. It really flows and
Yeah.
moves beautifully as it is. And those extra scenes, it's like, while they're informative and interesting, you realize they are kind of an unnecessary extra chunk to, again,
Okay.
in my mind.
Yeah, no. So
That
here's the thing. I've heard that argument before, and I think that's just a different in perspective. Because
yeah,
I personally don't see it that way. I don't think it's tighter. I think that adding in those scenes, it's still intense. I don't think it takes away from the tension or the suspense through the show, through the movie. Now, but I will say there's only two scenes I think are absolutely vital, and I think it's a crying shame that they were left out of the theatrical version, which is why I think the theatrical version is inferior, because it doesn't have these two vital scenes. Now the other scenes with like them having the guns shooting the aliens, like that's cool. I like those scenes, and I would put them in, but I don't think they're essential. If someone else thinks they slow down the plot, then I'd be okay, fine, you can take those out. But the two scenes you need, for one, is definitely the scene where they reveal her daughter was older
right.
and died.
Sure. I had a
Because
feeling that would be one of
informs her
yours.
whole character. That gives so much texture to her relationship with Newt, and it informs her character. It's so much added information that you need. So I think theatrical version is basically invalid for not having that scene.
Oh, wow.
And the other scene is, and this not as big of a sticking point for me, but it's still, I think, definitely needed to be in the theatrical, was showing Newt on the colony and her father getting the face hug.
But getting
Because
that first
sets up
shot of the
colony.
Discovery. And,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I could see, and again, both of those add on to it. Personally, I just think that the emotional payoff and connection between Ripley and Newt isn't dependent on knowing that Ellen had a kid before that she effectively lost because
Yeah,
being
but
in time.
it's not dependent on it, but it adds so much texture.
Oh no, it adds a whole lot. I'm just saying is I don't think that there's anything really lost. I think that still works. And while I love seeing the discovery of the alien ship, having that held off until we really find out what's going on, I think adds to kind of the mystery element.
See, now I can hear that argument, and I think it's valid that that is more sort of mysterious and suspense if you go there and you see Newt for the first time, you don't know who this person is. But I just have a different perspective.
Sure.
I just don't agree with that. For me personally, I was disappointed when I first saw it that we didn't see like who the hell is this girl. So when I saw the extra scene, I was like, this is what I wanted all along. Like this makes it so much better.
Yeah, and I've gone back and forth a couple of times over the years because there's, like I said, I really do love those scenes, and I think they do inform us a lot of what's going on. I think I'm just at that point now where it's like, that's great, but I understand why the theatrical is in the format that it is. And I like how that works as well. So
yeah, I mean, that's just the perspective. I don't have that perspective.
There's no right, there's no wrong.
But there's only popular opinion. That's
only popular.
That's a line from 12 Monkeys, my favorite movie.
Right, which is a great choice.
Popular opinion.
And I love your discussion because you also have two great ones on there, both Memento and Fight Club, which are films that I think are very informative on this. After you watch it the first time, rewatching those films and see
Yes.
how stuff is set up and goods are very brilliant. Those are
Well, I
also
think
two.
Donnie Darko's like that too.
Yeah, I
Well,
mean,
at
I
least
think
for me, I would watch it repeatedly and get something new out of it every time.
sure. I think you can. I just think it's both Memento and Fight Club are very particular in the fact of once that reveal happens at the end, you can see where all of this stuff was set up, implied, paid off. All the little check off guns that were sprinkled throughout the rest of the film. And you're like, oh, that's so you get to have a different experience rewatching it.
All right, so Stephen Kennedy, we are going to have to do a very strong agree to disagree on this one. Even stronger, saying Alien is better than Aliens or Alien 2. Both were great.
Both are great.
See, I don't
but you're
agree.
wrong. We weren't going to say people are wrong, but we're going to no. I think
well,
Aliens.
That's a different perspective because I'm actually not a fan of Alien. I think Alien is a good movie, but not great. I think it's better than okay. It's good, but I'm just not into those type of horror films. And I think it was great for when the time it came out. It was groundbreaking, but in retrospect, it doesn't hold up nearly as well as Aliens hold up. I think Aliens is still unique and unmatched, whereas Alien still feels kind of dated and done.
That is, I think, something that does hold Alien back is I think it oddly does look much more dated than Aliens, even though obviously they're both decades old at this point.
Well, I'm not even talking about like the visuals or the special effects. I just mean the story.
Well, I think both the story and the visuals in some way hold up pretty more, and maybe I'm just also seeing it through younger eyes, when I rewatch it. But I think in many ways it holds up, and I think Aliens is one of those rare superior sequels. Cameron, I think, did it again with probably T2 over Terminator. But
that I disagree with. I actually like the first two, but most people agree with you, so I'll give you that. But
I mean, I love Terminator, man. I think that there's awesome stuff. I'm just thinking from a composition and impact. Terminator is one of those where I show my kids and they're like, "Oh my God, what is it that we're watching?" Because technology is so dated. Where T2 has a lot more of the more modern.
That has a lot to do with budget. Like Terminator was shot on a shoestring budget, and Terminator 2 had a big Hollywood blockbuster budget.
Yeah, but we also have, Schwarzenegger looking his like Schwarzeneggeriest in Terminator. Give me your close. Your close, give them to me. Look, none of the lines in T2 match the lines from Terminator.
Well, if you notice, neither Terminator movie was on my top 50.
I did notice that.
That was not an oversight.
that is understandable. That is understandable.
So I did want to jump in the chat because we got a couple super chats. One from Allison saying, "Happy 10th Enchantment of Eternity. Here's to another 10 raging rants and awesome reviews. What's up next?" Well, what's up next is mostly just Star Trek Next Generation. I'm really trying to plow through that. Brandon Nilhouse also super chat saying, "Happy 10th anniversary, Mark. Thanks for being honest, hilarious, and interacting with the chat." Well, thank you. Yes, thanks for all the super chats. Been having quite a bit tonight. Stephen Kennedy says, "I love horror," and that explains the difference because I don't like horror. I am not a fan of horror. In fact, when I did a top 10 horror movies, and most of the movies in there were more thrillers than horrors because I don't really like horrors. I think Aliens was my number one, and some people were like, "Oh, that's more of an action movie," but it's also a horror movie. It's an action horror movie.
Yeah, I think so. And Terminator is definitely much more of a horror film than T2. And I think that's what makes the Terminator so great is because it actually is a horror film. And I think that's what kind of drives all of the character and the feel and stuff. It's a sci-fi horror.
And my other favorite horror was A Quiet Place, which, you probably saw that was on mine.
Yeah, which was good. I don't know if it would be as high on my particular list, but also, my number one would be very goofy and compared to anything on your list.
Do you know your number one? What's your number
Oh yeah, my number one favorite film,
one? Uh-huh.
Big Trouble in Little China.
Oh, really? I never got into that. I think I saw it when I was a little kid.
I
But
know a
I
lot of
don't.
people don't. It
Yeah.
had everything at the time, and Kurt Russell's amazing. And quite honestly, the way his character sets up is just, it speaks to me. I have a feeling that if I was trying to do a heroic adventure, I would be Jack Burton in the middle of that, desperately wanting to be the hero, having absolutely no idea what he's doing.
I think I remember watching it as a kid and enjoying it, but I think as an adult, it just comes off as too silly to me. But again, that's just.
No,
I
yeah.
think you must have a lot of nostalgia for it, though.
Oh yeah, no. There's it's one of those films I can almost always throw on and just sort of enjoy.
Yeah. Let's see.
Yeah, Rob's currently wearing the Jack Burton tank top.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Type chest bursting guy into Google and see what you get. Ooh, I want to try that. It's probably the alien burst out of the Google logo, probably. I did do crap like that from time to time. So another thing I wanted to ask you about with my top 50 is, do you notice that the Matrix films were absent as well?
I did. I think you had brought it up. Oh, you brought it up because you were talking about was it Dark
City? Yeah.
Dark City. Yeah, I was really impressed you put that on there. I was like, man, how many people have actually seen that one?
It's got its following.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, I'm sure it's a great film and it's got a lot of cool stuff. But I remember you did compare it to Matrix.
Yeah, because honestly, because Dark City came out in '98 and Matrix came out in '99. Honestly, when I saw Matrix, I was like, they're just doing Dark City, and I think, there's more sort of philosophical to Matrix, but I think Matrix, honestly, I'm not impressed with all the the wire work with all the action sequences and stuff. That just doesn't do anything for me.
Yeah, and I'm normally not a very big wire work fan. I just appreciate, I think, between the philosophy, the story, and the visuals, there was just so much cool stuff between, the early bullet camp stuff where they did that spin shot with Trinity in the very beginning.
Oh yeah, no, they're definitely good. It's just for me, they're good action sequences, but
yeah,
it's just for me, it's like I need more substance in my films.
Sure.
And I think Dark City, definitely, the acting was not great, but I think there was the story, like the way it unfolded was just more interesting to me.
Saying Rufus Sewell wasn't just dragging you through that whole storyline there?
Well,
that's
one of Kiefer Sutherland's worst performance. Like, what the hell was it? What kind of voice was he even doing there?
Yeah, people were trying to do a lot of things in that, and I think, I think at the time I appreciated what it was going for. I'm not sure if it really succeeded in my, younger viewpoint at the time, where I think probably the first Matrix grabbed me just as its combinations of visuals and idea.
But do you remember there was a movie that came out in '98 too called The 13th Floor?
Yeah, I didn't see that one.
You didn't see that? It was not good.
Yeah, I think that's why I didn't see it.
I think I liked it when I first saw it, but then years later I watched it again on cable. I'm like, ooh. But they did the same thing as like Dark City and Matrix, where they pull the wool out from under you, where you thought something was reality was one thing, but it turned out to be something different.
Yeah, and I think that's probably why, because I had already seen Dark City, and then 13th Floor, I'm like, oh, is this like the big thing that they're doing now? Is the creepy where am I and what world is this going on? And yeah.
Alyssa's saying the first time I watched Dark City, I watched it back to back with the Truman Show. Dark City was better. Yeah, I think it is. I just watched both recently, actually, and I think Dark City is better. And they're also kind of similar. Truman Show as well has that pull the wool. Although the audience knows from the start, but it's the character who doesn't. So.
Right.
But something else in the chat I want to mention. Oh yeah, Steven. Was it Steven? Hold on. Where is it? I lost it. Oh, Quiet Place was great. Part 2 was shit. I don't agree. Quiet Place was great, but Part 2 I wouldn't call it shit. I would say it's okay. I thought it was pretty good. It wasn't nowhere near as good as the first one though.
It was an inferior sequel, but yeah.
But my main problem with Part 2, getting into spoilers, is that at the end when that alien took the boat to get to the island, I'm like, come on, that's so stupid. Like that really lost me. I thought that movie had me up until that point, and I was like, you just want to have a big alien killing people sequence at the end, so you have to have the alien get in a boat. I'm like, that is so dumb.
Though I also have the shout out for Steven there. Another one which would be definitely on my top list. The Thing, John Carpenter's The Thing is.
Yeah, I never got into that. I know some people really love it, but I'm not a. Well, as I mentioned, like with Starman, I'm actually not a John Carpenter fan.
Sure. I know, and that was a great choice too. Starman's an excellent film. I think a highly underrated film.
Yes, I think that is undersold. I think a lot of people nowadays don't even know it exists. But Jeff Bridges was really proud of it.
What is kidnapped?
No, that was an absolutely great one.
Yeah.
Well, one last movie I wanted to ask you about was Cloud Atlas.
Love Cloud Atlas, one of my wife's favorite films, who also, by the way, says congratulations, is super excited.
Oh, yeah.
10 years. But yeah, Cloud Atlas, she loves. So yeah, I think that's a beautiful film. And you're right. I mean, there's some choices, some makeup stuff isn't 100%, isn't great, and so on. But that idea of continual lives and rebirths and living new things and different experiences, I think it's beautifully played out in that movie.
I think personally it has the best editing of any film. Like, because the way that they slice these different stories together and create like an emotional right with each different story, like I think that's unparalleled. I absolutely love that.
Yeah, no. I think it's beautifully crafted. You know, again, there's definitely some weird stuff. I think between some of the accents and some of the makeup. And
they just needed to get the makeup right. Like,
I think that threw a lot of people off, and of course, because it's very non-linear storytelling, because you're jumping through time and through different characters, and you're like, wait a minute, Tom Hanks is this like slaver guy, but he's also this old bum guy, and who's this, you know. I think a lot of people don't get that, and so I think they lose a lot of what the film is hitting on, the kind of ideas and concepts and stuff. But I mean, it's one of those big ones by the Wachowskis that just do amazing stuff. And you're right, the editing is great. A lot of the visual storytelling is amazing. There's just a few things that I think are just too much for people that make them what. And so they don't engage with it as
well.
much.
It was also Tom Tykwer also directed that film. He was the guy who did Run Lola Run. It was the three of them that
right. Which, by the way, love on your list too. Run Lola Run is awesome. And Tykwer actually did a lot of the music for Run Lola Run.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So
let's see. So a few comments in the chat. Brandon saying, I like The Thing. Starman deserves more love. I agree. Alyssa said, none of my friends have heard of Starman, and it shocks me. Yeah, it wouldn't actually surprise me. I think it's underrated, underknown film. And Stephen Kennedy says, I can't wait for movie night on Enterprise. I'll leave it for my comment. God, I hate movie night on Enterprise. I don't know if you heard me rant about that, but why are they watching movies from the 50s and 60s? We're in the fucking 22nd century.
Yeah, that's Alyssa here. When's the Enterprise movie catalog stop at 1940?
To be fair, there was one time they watched Rosemary's Baby, which I think was the early 70s. So I think that's the
Yeah.
most recent they did, but still, it's like
A lot of films didn't survive the nuclear wars and the eugenic wars. It's something not discussed a lot in the Enterprise timeline.
all right. And then Alyssa's saying, I definitely have to overlook the bad makeup to enjoy Cloud Atlas. Yeah, you do, but I think the rest of the movie is so good that it does overcome that downfall, in my opinion. Why does Enterprise movie? Oh yeah, stop at 1940. Yeah, and horror fan know why. Anyway, another movie I want to ask you about. I just bought the soundtrack on vinyl.
Oh yeah.
My favorite soundtrack. Did you see that movie? And what if
Uh,
so, what do you think?
with Mr. Bill Pullman, of
Yes.
course I saw Lost Highway. Yeah, I don't know. I went through a David Lynch phase, as many people do. And Blue Velvet is not that good of a film. No,
Yeah, I
I
never got into Blue Velvet.
yeah,
Like,
I mean I like it. I think it's just fine. It's just weird, like all of his
yeah,
stuff. But yeah, when you hit Lost Highway and Mulholland Drive, it's definitely Lynch just doing his like Lynchiest stuff.
I think
Um,
that's peak Lynch, actually.
oh yeah, it very much is. You know, there's like three people in the theater with you, and like halfway through, you're catching people looking around like, "Do you know what the hell's going on?" Um, but yeah, I like Lost Highway enough. I think you're right. I think it is a little better than Mulholland Drive. I think it's just a little bit more interesting. Plus, also, I'm a big Bill Pullman fan, so um, I think that grabs on. And that final shot of him like driving down just with the crazy laughter, you know, it's like, yeah, that's the end of a David Lynch film right there.
But did you hear the theories on what it's about? Like, did you know it was an analogy for O.J. Simpson?
I did not know that. I did
Yeah.
not know that. I mean, I'd rewatch it if I really want to kind of get into that mood. But man, it's a lot of those Lynch films are like, man, I'm glad I saw that, and I never have to watch it
See,
again.
that's not my reaction with at least Lost Highway and Mulholland Drive, and especially Lost Highway. I watched that repeatedly and repeatedly and trying to make sense of that. And then I watched some YouTube videos that explain it. But it's really, theoretical because he purposely doesn't tell you what it's about because he wants the audience to determine that for themselves. But it's very clear that it's an analogy of a guy who killed his wife, and then in his head he thinks that he didn't. He's in denial, so he lives this other fantasy world where he's this younger person. He's the one being persecuted, and that's what David Lynch said in an interview, that he modeled that off of OJ because he thought that OJ genuinely believed that he didn't do it when clearly he did. So he wondered what kind of fucked up person and what would be like being inside their head.
Sure.
But all the specifics, like the guy who's talking on the phone, I am at your house. I fucking love that scene, by the way. All the specifics that are really open to interpretation. They could be interpreted in many different ways.
Well, and that's the fun thing about Lynch, is because you have so many kind of psychological influences, and each of those tends to have a characterization or some sort of manifestation in there. So yeah, it's like this is the doubts in your mind coming across the phone here as you're living this fever dream of your own expectations. And I mean, they are almost the definitive kind of art house. You don't go this to try and figure out what actually happened. You go there to experience the emotional and visual journey that it takes you on. And I think that, like you said, that's kind of the peak Lynch period where he was just like, I'm gonna do this thing, and you're gonna get it or you're not, but you're definitely going on a journey.
And honestly, the main reason why I think Lost Highway is better than Mulholland Drive, the soundtrack. I love that soundtrack so much, and the Mulholland Drive soundtrack, which is all right. It's not that I love the bands. Like, I don't like Marilyn Manson. I'm not a huge fan of Lou Reed, but I just think the way that the songs were used and the combination was just brilliant.
Oh, I mean, I think sound design and music design is a somewhat unappreciated region of filmmaking, because it's not about finding the coolest needle drops for this moment. It's finding the music that portrays the scene and lives it and breathes it, and or gives it dimension in the best way. And yeah, I think those are the kind of films where that's really comes out. The musical choices really hit well. And it's not just this is a great song of this period, because you're right. Who cares about the actual song? But it's memory because it hits you and it works in that moment very well. And it's hard to hit that, movie after movie. And I think Lost Highway really did. Yeah.
Because I'm thinking of like Forrest Gump, because I remember a lot of people loving that soundtrack, but they liked it just because it was a collection of classic '60s songs that they
That's
liked.
it. This is the big popular song of the era, but none of the music really accentuated any of the big moments of the film outside of just telling you where you were in a timeline sequence. But I don't think a lot of them really accentuated the story, character, or emotion being told quite the same way. I mean, I think there was a couple of bits here and there, but I think overall, it's like a lot of stuff. What's the big popular music that we can all throw on here that people will buy the album?
Yeah, and that's not what makes a good soundtrack.
No.
All right, Darren. So I've been going for nearly over 3 hours now.
Yeah. I will get out of here and let you say goodbyes. I just was excited to jump in on your big 10 years, man.
Don't want to keep you any longer, too. You've been here for 2 hours.
Yeah. Well, I will sign off and let you say goodbye to all these nice people.
Bye.
Everyone in the chat, thanks so much. And Mark, congrats on the 10 years. I look forward to your next top 25 countdown of Star Trek episodes. Take care. Bye.
All right. Thanks, Darren. All right, so Alyssa is saying Guardians of the Galaxy 1 and 2 are best soundtracks in the MCU. Yeah, I'm not the big fan of those soundtracks either. I will say they are used well in the movie. I honestly, I like the soundtrack to Guardians of the Galaxy 3 better. Just my personal taste. And like the way that they used the Beastie Boys song with them with like getting badass, like that's what I remember. I thought that was awesome. But that is just me. Anyway, thanks everyone for joining us. Stephen, Brandon, of course, we had Alyssa and Darren joined us live. And then we had Rob from Smirk and Gun Review, Jordan Johnson, and a few others stopping by. Allison, yeah, thank you all for joining us tonight, joining me for my 10th anniversary. Thank everyone for all their super chats and their well wishes for my 10th anniversary. Thanks for sticking with the channel for however long that you have, and hopefully you will stick along a bit longer. I'm not going to say another 10 years because definitely not making promises like that, but not going away anytime soon. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.